what's happening now is shocking. It's a disgrace, people not getting paid. It's just ridiculous. Who would have thought this about our football club? I want to thank just a few fans groups. I know there's a few here. I've seen our forces lad. There's a lot of stuff goes about people being, you know, having a go at each other. I don't want that to happen. We all need to pull together. We're the biggest fans group, but it don't mean to say we're number one. Funnily enough, ladies group at second biggest fans group, so you can see we, you know, it's a massive thing. This I think we're nearly at 5,000 members, which is unbelievable. So what I want to do is just get an outline of what we want from tonight. It's for you as well as us. It's for us to get across what we want to do, but I want some feedback from you guys. We'll talk about different things this evening. We're launching our what I see as a vision for football club. We 8 different things. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about something that will interest you all. It'll sound boring, but we've got James Silver over here who's on our board, and we've got a really interesting insight into where the money's gone, what's happened with the money, why we're in trouble. I think you'll be shocked at some of that, and it'll open a few eyes. Got Simon from 1867 News, who you all know has been involved with the takeover, the latest bid and takeover. I'm going to let him have a few words. And each section, we're going to let you have a question and answer section. We'll come around with a microphone. Please ask questions. If we can answer, we will. There's a couple of things we can't really talk about in depth. We had a meeting with EFL on Friday, which were really positive. There were a few things come out of that. They've released the minutes today, but we can't really talk about it. We're going to release it tomorrow. But I will say that there was some positivity come out of that meeting with EFL as regards to the chairman and where we're at. On that note, if it's okay, guys, I'm going to hand over to James for the analysis of the finance. And when he's finished, I'm going to hand over to James, the other James, who's going to do the MCing for the evening. He's from the Wednesday Till I Die podcast. I want to thank him for coming along, and he's streaming it live tonight. So thanks everybody. Once again, I can't believe how many's here. What a turnout. It just proves how much this club means to everybody. And one of the lads who was in here posted something on social media not long ago, and he said, you don't choose Wednesday, Wednesday chose you. And I think that's many a true word spoken there. It's very, very much relevant. Thanks guys, cheers.
Okay, thank you everybody, and thank you again for coming out tonight. Just to echo Ian's words, it's great to see so many people here. Ian set me up on a bit of a hiding for nothing by saying this isn't going to be boring, so hopefully it isn't for you. But what we're trying to do, I think, here is almost in a way do a kind of a jigsaw. So we know what the big picture is, we know that he's ran out of money, but what we don't know is some of the details. So I'm going to talk about around the accounts, just to give you a little bit of background. About a year ago, roughly, the Trust, in a referendum by members, set up a finance subgroup that reports into the Trust board. I can't name the names on that, except for one. We've got on there Dan Plumley, who's a football finance expert at Sheffield Hallam University. It's also staffed with people in the Big Four, from the Big Four accountancy firms. We've got people from pension funds in there, other financial institutions. And what we're starting to do is put a body of research together to try and understand more about the finances at Sheffield Wednesday and where and when and how things are going wrong. So, what we're going to do first of all is talk about something that is at the front of the accounts and is something that has been mentioned a lot, which is the going concern assumption. So this is something that you've probably seen or heard about quite a few times. And the important little bit of this wordy statement is just here. And basically what that says is that the chairman, I'm loath to call him such because the chairman has a board of executive and non-executive directors, but anyway, the owner has basically guaranteed that he will fund the club as a going concern. Now we know that wages are not being paid, so we can already maybe start to question whether that assumption is gone. Now what is different though, and what doesn't get picked up on, is that there's also this, which is in the chairman's status, which is actually material uncertainty. So it's not just a going concern assumption in Sheffield Wednesday's accounts, which, to be fair, all loss-making football clubs have this going concern assumption. So that's not, in the world of football, that's not necessarily something that's odd. But what is odd is the material uncertainty clause. And this is something that, as you can see here, maybe not too well at the back, but is actually signed off by Dave Fonchansiri. And what it says is, it's him saying that funding Sheffield Wednesday Football Club is not a legal liability. So he's saying in the account he has no legal liability to actually fund the club, and as a consequence he's identified a material uncertainty that may cast doubt over the company's ability to continue, and therefore its ability to realise its assets and discharge its liabilities in the normal course of business. So there's two possible interpretations of this. The generous one is that it's a mere statement of fact, that he's ran out of money, okay, and he's telling us as such in fanciful accounting language, but he's essentially admitting it. The second interpretation is that it's a threat. It's a threat to us to say, look, I'm legally don't have to put money into this football club, and if I don't want to or I don't have it, I won't. So there's two interpretations. I can't read the man's mind. I wouldn't want to. It seems chaotic, but there's two potential interpretations there. And what I want to do is go back and actually just look at briefly the financial history of Sheffield Wednesday. So we're not going into all of the weird and wonderful things he's done. These are purely things related to finances. And actually, as far as we can tell, there's every single year, or many years in the last few years, Sheffield Wednesday have had a payment with a problem paying players, and more recently paying non-playing staff as well. So we've got March 2025 and May 2025 this year, the most recent occurrences. But we also had in an EFL document the fact that in March 2021, April 2021, May 2021, June 2021, we also paid wages late. We paid wages late in October 2020, November 2020, December 2020. And we also paid wages late in November 2019, 5 months before lockdown started. That's one of yours, Alex, by the way. So there's a history of not paying club staff. The idea that this is new or something that's happened fairly recently in the last 2 years is just not accurate, and it predates COVID as well, because I've been in meetings with the club where they tried to put the narrative forward. This big financial crisis happened in COVID. Everything was pretty much okay before then. COVID happened, it's harmed the chairman's ability to fund the club, and it was this global financial crisis's fault. That is not an accurate narrative, or at least in my view, it's not an accurate narrative. And I think that this is part of the evidence to prove it, that he was struggling to pay players even before COVID happened. Now, on top of that, we've had 2 instances now of late payment of HMRC, October 2023, and more recently November 2024 as well. So on top of not paying players and non-playing club staff on time, we've also had instances where he's not paid the taxman on time either. And this has periodically led us to be in transfer embargoes, okay? So the earliest instance of a transfer embargo at Sheffield Wednesday was the one that they didn't tell us about, which was 2018. We were in a transfer embargo in 2019. We were in a transfer embargo in 2021. We were in a transfer embargo in 2023. We were in a transfer embargo in 2024. And we're in a transfer embargo again. The BBC obviously got that bored with reporting. They just started copying and pasting the headlines. Sorry, mate. So in the last few years, there's only been 1 or 2 years max where we haven't been in a transfer embargo. And some of these I'd forgotten about. When we were doing the research for this, I'd forgotten we were in one all the way back in 2018, 2021. So we're perennially a club that doesn't play its playing staff, doesn't play now its non-playing club staff, is perennially in transfer embargoes, doesn't pay the taxman on time. And in 2020, we got, of course, the deduction as well, reduced down to 6 points. Another sign of financial and general managerial incompetence. Of course, that 6 point deduction was related to the ground. EFL documentation showed that Chansiri had his hand held through that process by the EFL. They couldn't have made it easier for him. And he still managed to file the paperwork 2 days late, which is why we got the 6-point deduction. So even past the fact that we now don't own the ground, it's owned by Sheffield 3 Limited, the simple fact is that his efforts to get around profit and sustainability rules were done that incompetently. We ended up getting a 6-point deduction anyway, which, by the way, of course, just to remind you, I'm sure you remember, was what got us relegated that season. If we'd had those 6 points back, we wouldn't have been relegated to League One. So the players did their job. Not being, obviously, we were in transfer embargo around this time. The players did their job. The playing staff that could be cobbled together, they did their job. The coaching staff did their job. We had several managers that year. Collectively, they got enough points to keep us up. It was the chairman what did it. And then there's all the ticket prices stuff. So just to rattle through a few of these: ridiculous, overpriced, pay on the gates prices, multiple categories, recent increase in concession prices. Again, some of these I'd forgotten. Remember when he banned the BBC and tried to introduce a £4.50 per month subscription service? Membership prices rises from £30 to £50 via an attempt to put them up to 80. Earlier and early bird season ticket prices, multiple phases of season ticket prices, which leaves at the highest price our tickets, season tickets being upwards of £800, near £900. 3-year season tickets launched in 2016-17, so the second year of his ownership, an early sign of his grasping around for cash. 10-year season tickets launched in 2020 and 2023, and Club 1867, presumably such a success, it was launched in 2017 and relaunched in 2019. And then on top of that, we've got Sheffield Wednesday fans who've had to go into small claims court, make claims on their credit card for legally required ticket refunds. So what we've got here is a rising narrative. In a way, we don't really need to look at the accounts in detail. We can see it with our own eyes. We have seen it with our own eyes. We've witnessed it, we've experienced it throughout the last 7 to 8 years. One final thing before I do dip into the accounts and start to put a few numbers and patterns around this story is just to identify as well that within accounting and financial kind of academic literature, one of the things that they say is that a complex corporate structure is something, or is an identifier of a club or a business or organisation more widely that has finance or cash flow interests, because problems, I beg your pardon, cash flow, financial problems, because usually a convoluted or overly complex corporate structure is a way of hiding information that doesn't want to be known. Now, Sheffield Wednesday has a fairly complex corporate structure, so our immediate parent company is Sheffield Wednesday Holdings Limited in Hong Kong, but the ultimate parent company is rooted back into Sheffield 2 Limited, which is registered in England and Wales. There's then a complex system of micro companies that don't seem to exist in any meaningful form beyond appearing in the accounts, and I'll get onto that later. But we've now got a total of 6 related parties that appear in Sheffield Wednesday accounts, the most recent of which is Blue Steel Beverages Limited. I've not heard of that one. Then we've got Sheffield 5, Sheffield 3, Elevate Energy Drink Limited, Elevate Clothing Limited, and D Performance Limited, which is still knocking around. I think that might have been the first one with the taxes. So, the experts that have fed into this presentation made me do a little boring slide about how we've worked out some of the numbers. So they told me that basically they've worked off an assumption that the cash flow statement probably is the best representation of funds flowing through the club that we're going to get from the annual accounts. Of course, the annual accounts don't tell you everything. The management accounts within the organisation are what will tell you the true story, of course, the more accurate story, but obviously we don't have access to those, so we can only do the best we can from the annual accounts, and we've supplemented it where possible from other information in various financial statement disclosures to Companies House. And we've looked at a time period between 2015 and 2024. Now, 2015 is obvious why we've done that. The chairman, the owner, took over in February 2015. 2024 is because the latest set of annual accounts is 23-24, so we don't have the latest set of accounts. We've also made the assumption that all of those related parties that I discussed on the right-hand side of that previous slide that I've just showed you, that financial flows between those companies and Sheffield Wednesdays aren't actually real. Okay, they are what's called book entries, and they're there for accounting purposes rather than actual flows of cash. Now, that can be challenged. There are some people who would say you should include that. But what I will say is if we do include it, actually in a way we've been generous to the chairman by not including it, because if you look at the flows between these companies, okay, throughout the last 10 years, when you tot it all up, he's taken more money out of Sheffield Wednesday into these companies than he's put in because of the stadium rent. So if we took those as real flows of money, it would reduce his total investment by about £8 million. But we haven't included that because we don't think they're real flows of money. We think that they're probably just there for accounting purposes. So that little explainer done and dusted. What's myth number one that I'm going to challenge? And by the way, that wasn't acceptable. You're in a working men's club, not a theatre. Come on, where was the booze? That's better. There's two more, so I expect you to be paying attention next time. So the first myth that I wanted to try and quash is that he puts £2 million in on average every month. Okay? And what we've done here is we've gone through the accounts and we've worked out how much money we think in total is put into the club. Okay? So we think, and by the way, there are different competing values on this. I've seen it range roughly, different people, sensible people, range from around 160 million up to at the top end of 190 million. But all of these are falling within that margin. So it's not actually, we think it's within a margin of error, and we think that people are basically accountants, are all getting to a very similar number. We get it at 167.7 million in total. That includes, by the way, the purchase price. Now, there's a couple of things I really want to point out here, which is basically that funding of Sheffield Wednesday falls off a cliff after 2018. Okay, so you can see that total funding, including the purchase price in 2015, was about roughly 45 million. Again, we will publish, if I'm not mentioning it, we will publish a report in due course with the numbers. I don't want to focus on numbers today, I want to focus on the patterns and the narrative and the story. So the main thing here is roughly 45 million, declines a little bit in year 2, 2016. We're looking at around 15 million, I think it was. Then we were up to 20, and then we're up to the big final payday where he puts 40 million pounds into the club in 2018. After that, it falls off a cliff. Okay, you can see the number falls significantly in 2019, and thereafter, it's typically below 10 million in total every single year, and in fact in some years it's substantially lower. So in 2020 he didn't put any money into the club. In 2020 that was exclusively the money that went into the club was through external borrowing, and we are assuming, we do have to make the assumption because it doesn't say it in the accounts, but we are assuming this is the charge on the ground ultimately to New Avenue Projects Limited. Okay, and then those green parts of the bar thereafter are basically that debt being rolled over, with a slight exception of 2022 where he paid back more external debt than he actually took out. So yeah, basically what that means is that 2018 onwards, money investment into the club falls off a cliff. It's nowhere near the levels it was in the early years. And actually, if you start to look at this in percentage terms, okay, roughly we're looking at around 70% of total investment that he's put into Sheffield Wednesday comes in those first 4 years. After that, it just absolutely falls off a cliff. Now, there's only 2 years in which he's put money into the club that equates anywhere near £2 million a month. Those were in 2015, those were in 2018. Actually, in every single other year thereafter, he has put nowhere near £2 million in a month. If you average it out, it's £1.2 million per month of his ownership, but that's basically because you had these two bonanza years, and it's because we're being perhaps unnecessarily generous to him and were including the purchase price as part of his investment, which again is perhaps something that could be challenged, but it doesn't change the overall numbers particularly too much in the story. In fact, there's a couple of years to point out. 2020, 2022, you'll notice that that number for the red bar, that is the average monthly investment, falls down to zero, falls below £500,000. So in some years, like I say, it's got investment into the club has been practically non-existent. And in other years, like I say, it's nowhere near where it was in the first few years at, we might argue, subsistence levels. So they're the two big stories really from that slide. If we move on a little bit. The other thing I wanted to challenge is this idea that you pay for nothing, that we pay for nothing, okay? So what we've done is, we've basically worked out how much money we've put in through matchday income, which we state here because Sheffield Wednesday's accounts are a bit strange and they don't have separate figures for TV money and matchday income. The blue bar, which is our cumulative investment, includes TV money in that as well. Now imagine if Chancery was here and he would say, well, TV money isn't yours, it's not money you're putting in, but it is. Because football clubs could only ask for exorbitant TV deals from TV companies because we are all collectively sat at home watching television, consuming football that allows them to bring in ad revenues. That means they can then go to the Football League, Premier League, and say, yeah, we're going to give you billions of pounds in some cases. And also Sheffield Wednesday in their accounts count TV money as matchday income, so I don't see why we shouldn't here for the purposes of this. So what we've done here is basically each on year added up the matchday income, okay, and it basically by 2024, we have put in cumulatively since 2015 as a fan base £129.5 million into the club. Now if you take out the purchase price, okay, so we're just talking about pure investment now, if we take out the purchase price and we take out a £4 million bit of money that Chancery gave Mandarich in January 2025, he has put in over those 10 years 126.2 million. So our investment over the 10 years is now more cumulatively than he's putting in according to the 23-24 accounts. And if my judgment will be when the 24-25 accounts come out, that will be much more because matchday income is rising now, as we've seen from the previous graph. He's putting in roughly around £8 to £10 million a year max, some years much less, and our commercial income, as we'll show, matchday income and commercial sponsor income is higher than that. So Sheffield Wednesday fans are now cumulatively putting more money into the club as a total value than he is. What we then looked at was turnover. Okay, so turnover is the combination of the money that we put in, which is in blue, and the money that commercial sponsors put in, which is in orange. And we can see already how this collective number is higher on an annual basis than the investment that Chancery has put in. So collective to the matchday income, commercial sponsors, so fans and commercial sponsors are collectively every single year in volume terms putting way more money into the club than he is. So this idea that we pay for nothing, it just doesn't, it's not a reality. It doesn't actually, you can't, if you put it under any scrutiny, it just completely falls to pieces. So I put this on because, as you can see, in 2024, cumulatively of matchday income and commercial money was above 25 million. It was actually around 26. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning that is because the collective money that we're putting in, okay, the collective money, sorry, that we're putting in commercial sponsors is now higher than the wage bill, okay? So we put in more money every single year than the total wage bill in the 23-24 accounts. We put in enough money to pay all of the players, to pay all of the non-playing club staff, and have a few million left over. There's no excuse for not paying wages. It's simply unacceptable according to the numbers. The only way he can't pay is because of financial mismanagement within the club, okay? That's the only way, because he's getting enough money from us and commercial sponsors to pay the wages. There's no excuses for not paying wages. So just to give you an idea, put some numbers around how thin Sheffield Wednesday is run on a cash basis. Okay, at the end of the 23-24 season, cash reserves at Sheffield Wednesday were that low, they covered 8% of the total monthly wage bill. So Sheffield Wednesday as an organisation, as a business, is run on a cash basis so tightly and so thinly. Okay, it means that if he doesn't have the money at the end of the month, the wages ain't getting paid because he's just completely financially mismanaged it. So 23-24, end of the season, there was enough money in the bank to cover only 8% of that month's total monthly wage bill, including, by the way, national insurance and the like. So nearly did give you a chance to boo then, did I? So yeah, the last one, basically saying I'm the one who saved the money, spent the money for the club, okay, well on what? Okay, it's not on players, or at least it hasn't been since 2018, which again, this slide is an indicator that 2018, 2 years before COVID, is the year when he ran out of cash. You can see that the blue here is player transfers and the orange is money recouped through transfer sales, and we think that that 2020 bumper little bit there was the Steve Bruce and his coaching staff. Possibly getting £6 million for them was the only good deal he's ever done at Sheffield Wednesday, but anyway. And we can see that basically after 2018 there's been no money spent on the squad. Okay? Incredibly low amounts of money anyway. So he's not spending money on players, okay? Or at least the last time he did was a very, very long time ago. He'll be spending money on wages, but like I've already shown, according to the accounts, we are covering the wages. Okay, so his money that he puts in is not the wages. We've got that. We've got our community sorted. Okay, it's him who's letting us down, not us. And it's not on infrastructure, because basically he's only spent money on infrastructure in the first 2 years, which was 2016-17. He hasn't spent anything really thereafter. And in fact, because of the way accounts work, where you talk about depreciation and assets getting old and needing to be replaced, there are actually some years where, for accounting purposes, they basically said we've got negative fixed assets, which is infrastructure. Basically, there's been equipment not replaced, getting old, no longer fit for purpose. So he's not spending it on players anymore. We've got the wages covered. He's not spending it on the infrastructure. So he needs to account to us where the money is actually going. So I'm going to stop there because I don't want this to be just a massive kind of bang, bang, bang accounting thing. Okay, key messages. First of all, 2018 is the tipping point, after which he basically runs out of money. And we can see that because it's the year that thereafter that player spending declines to practically nothing, at least in modern footballing terms. It's when infrastructure stops, and it's when, of course, we started having the stadium sale debacle first rear its head, and it's also when the club first entered the transfer embargo. So second key message, fan investment has now on a cumulative basis outgrown investment from Chancery himself. In total, investment from into Sheffield Wednesday from fans, therefore, has surpassed that by Chancery over the period of his ownership. And in 2023-2024, investment from fans and commercial sponsors combined was more than enough to cover the total wage bill for that year, with some left over. Final one, and then I'm going to stop. Chancery doesn't have the cash to sustain Sheffield Wednesday in the Championship. I think that is now clear. And I'll talk a little bit more around that in a second. But we can see that from how we operate Sheffield Wednesday extremely leanly on a cash basis, as shown by the cash reserves being so low at the end of the 23-24 season, putting us in jeopardy each month. If he doesn't have the money, we don't make payroll. That figure, by the way, is not the first time is the first time in the Championship cash reserves have been so low, but there have been in other seasons indicators. So the 2 seasons we were in the Championship prior to relegation to League One, so we're going back 3 or 4 years now, cash reserves were 25% at the end of 1 year of monthly total wage bill, and cash reserves in the other year were 17% of monthly total wage bill, which means basically in the last 3 years we've been in the Championship, he ain't had enough money, okay? Or if he does have enough money, he's not putting it into the club, or if he has enough money and he's not putting it into the club, he runs the club so farcically, its cash reserves are so thin, it puts us in jeopardy every month for making payroll anyway. As shown by all those times we've not paid our players on time, that I went through at the start of the presentation. So, I think we've got a conversation to have. Forgot I had those two, apologies. Basically, the key message here finally was how long before he can't pay HMRC, because there's obviously been 2 instances now in 23, 24 where he's not paid them by just a few days. How long till he doesn't pay them for a few weeks? How long till he doesn't pay them for a few months? And I think we have to have a conversation about what we do about it. So, thank you very much. I'll leave it there.
So the floor's open if you want to ask questions. We'll try and answer it. Some of that's a bit above my head, but you can see it's run like a Billy Smart circus, isn't it, guys? So anybody want to ask anything about that? Come on, guys, don't be shy.
Can you hear me? Probably hear me better with that. Heard a rumour this week, don't know how true it is. Obviously, we all know people are working ground. When he sold off the ground to like his brother owns the pitch, his sister owns the north stand, etc. I've heard that that's also happened this week with the training ground. Is that true, or has it happened before, or how does that rumour stand? Any information on that?
I don't know if anybody else has heard anything. Just ask again, Emma, would you?
When obviously he got the ground, and the rumours are that he sold off each stand to each family member, so it wasn't. I've heard that this week that was also the case with the training ground. How true is that?
Nobody's got a clue, I don't think. Simon?
I can't tell you for absolute 100% certainty, but I don't believe that's necessarily the case. Any discussions that's been had as regards selling the club have always been to sell it lock, stock and barrel. And by that I mean Sheffield 2, Sheffield 3, Sheffield, all of those complicated things. Any offers that have been made have been to buy everything and then try and find out where it actually all goes. But it was included. I don't think there's any evidence to suggest he's going to try and keep part of it.
No, not so much to buy it. When he gave like all that we've heard before, that to get away with tax purposes. So this company owns one stand, another company owns another stand. I've heard that they were saying with the training ground this week, that's all that was.
I don't think we're paying any tax. Yeah, obviously there are lots of rumours and the situation is pretty dire, but I don't think it's quite as dire as some of the most extreme rumours actually are. I think it's more straightforward than that. It's quite a bit more banal than perhaps some people think it is.
Thanks, Simon.
Firstly, excellent bit of work there. It's nice to see it all laid out, and there's lots that I forgot about. We all probably forgot about. How long have you been gathering this information for to present it like this? Because obviously this is an issue we're having at the moment with the wages not being paid. But I'm guessing you've been planning to present this and lay it all out. So how long have you been putting this together for?
I can answer some of that. And the financial planning group at the Trust were put together over 12 months ago. They built on that and they've been gathering information since then. Obviously there were problems then. We are trying to be proactive. We get pelters thrown at us and all sorts. We're not just a protest group, we're acting behind the scenes as well. As later on you'll hear, we're talking to FSA, we're talking to EFL. Some of the EFL stuff I'm not at liberty to say, but James is sorry guys, but yeah, he's our EFL lad who's been talking to EFL. I was in on that meeting. So one of the ladies group, Sophia Rose, who stood over here from Trust Board, very supportive, I think, from the EFL. That's all I can say from that. But there's stuff going on in the background all the time. What you've got to remember is we're all volunteers. I'm just a lad of Foxhill who's trying to do my best for Wednesday. Yeah, it upsets me to see me club in such a state, right? People who know me know I've followed him for years and years. Years and years and years, too many years, all right, yeah, home and away, right, and I think everybody in here is the same, it's in his heart, so we volunteers, we're doing his best, but it has been ongoing for a lot longer than just the current crisis. I think James will tell you exactly what we've been doing with that finance stuff.
Yeah, so we've had the group for about, looking into the finances for about a year, but because we are volunteers, for about 9 months there's only 3 of us, and there's now 10 since March. So I think the crisis has helped sharpen a few minds and get people who were a bit sat on the fence to get involved. Okay, so I did a first draft of some of this stuff, not being a finance expert, and then I managed to recruit some finance experts, and they told me I'd done it wrong. So, and actually then, because they knew what they were doing, it only really took us like 2 or 3 weeks to get this sorted. And it's not the only thing we've been doing as well, so we've been doing quite a lot around trying to find out as much as we can from publicly available sources about the chairman's business empire, such as it is. So we're not quite ready to release it yet, but we think we've tracked his business empire such as it is in Thailand. Okay, so we're going to be releasing some of that soon. And also bits and other pieces as well along the way that I can't talk about too much, I'm afraid, which I know is a crap answer, but there's certain things, hopefully you'll see the fruits of that in due course.
So yeah, the trust strategy is basically to have, so we've got the finance committee finding information as much as we can to give all of the authorities, EFL, the regulator. We're feeding information to Clive Betts, our MP, who has been amazing, backed us all the way, come along to loads of meetings. He's been properly outstanding. We're, as you said, working with EFL, got protests to keep eyes on it, not let this absolute disaster go forgotten. We're circling around, keeping the pressure on him. He's not going to get away with this.
Thanks, boys.
Yeah, I've just got a couple of questions, if that's all right. You had an element in green which you called external financing. Do we know who that is with? And how much in total?
So I think in total now it's roughly 7 million, and it's the charge on the ground that he rolls over every year to New Avenue Project Limited. So that's the loan that he took out in 2020. He exclusively in 2020 financed the club by that mechanism, that money, and he's never paid it back. It rolls over every single year, and in the year that he doesn't pay it back or roll it over, okay, that's the ground gone to New Avenues Project Limited.
Right. And the second question I've got is, you talked about the companies on the right-hand side, like Sheffield 3, which I think owns the ground, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
You call them related parties, so they're not directly owned by Sheffield Wednesday anymore?
Sorry, that was accountant speak. You can tell I've been hanging around with accountants. So in the accounts, they're called related party transactions, but they're all owned by him. He's the only director.
But they're not owned by Sheffield Wednesday anymore?
They're owned by him.
They're external, so he's took them out of the group structure?
They're owned by him, yeah. So there might be, I haven't looked at their accounts, they might be owned by Sheffield 3 or 2 maybe, but they're not owned by Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah, Sheffield 5, yeah. One of the Sheffields. He loves, by the way, one of the things that comes out in the Thai report, he loves just creating businesses with one person, which is him, which tracks for his personality, doesn't it? So.
Any more?
Excellent presentation. Thank you
you.
very much. How long can this situation be sustained? Are we heading for administration? And if we were to go into administration, what exactly does that mean to our club?
Simon, you probably answer that best. As far as I'm aware, he's trying to avoid administration. Whether that's the end result, I don't know. For the club, for me, it's a disaster, but it might be a way out and a restart. But Simon will probably answer that better than I can.
I'll have a go. It's something I was going to discuss a little bit later on. But yeah, but basically, whichever way you slice it, it doesn't work out better off from his point of view to do it that way, because we don't have a tremendous amount of external debt, we don't have any massive amount of creditors, and normally you go into administration to get rid of your creditors because you can't afford to pay HMRC or whoever else it is that you're owing money to, and you go into administration to get rid of that debt to then hopefully have a Phoenix company to come back out again, not burdened by it. Our main debtor is, again, Mr. Chancery. He's the answer to every single question. So he is owed a lot of money in his director's loan account. He doesn't owe that much money out. So if he was to sell the club as a straight sale, he would obviously be able to keep 100% of it once he's paid off all the, you know, any actual like new avenue projects, that sort of thing. Whereas if he goes into administration, he's going to be able to get 80% of it or something in that region. He would still be getting so many pence in the pound because there would be a surplus on the value of the club. However, you would probably get less money in a sale by an administrator, and the administrator would charge like a rhino. You'd be looking at £4 or £5 million at least of administrator costs, which would come out of his own pocket. So there's not really any incentive for why he would want to do that, unless there is some debt that we don't know about that he wants to try and find a way to get rid of. It doesn't seem to me to be the obvious answer.
Seems to me that it's HMRC. If you can't pay HMRC, which every time is lasting longer, not paying players, eventually he's not going to be able to pay the tax man, and they don't mess around, do they? They come in hard, and there probably won't be administration. It'll be something else. It'll be a winding up order of some sort.
Yeah, just a quick one. So one of the things that the finance group are doing, a couple of people on it are starting. We're trying to be as responsible as possible and plan for every scenario. So we have started working with the FSA a bit to put plans together for a Phoenix club if it's necessary. So that's one of the things we're doing.
Young man, yeah.
So, obviously, we've been getting a lot of match day income, a lot of commercial income. The wages haven't been that high recently. We've not been buying many players. Obviously, haven't been selling either. But the amount of money that's coming into the club itself versus how much money the club actually has, is there anything at all to suggest potential financial misappropriation of funds external to the club, which by law isn't allowed, but you know, with all his 17 different companies, do you think he's been squirreling stuff outside of the country to fund businesses elsewhere?
There's no way I'll switch it that way.
We've all got houses, mate. You know what's coming, don't you? We can guess, but no, we can't comment on that, mate. Yeah, it's very difficult. But what James produced there opened my eyes. The actual match day income exceeds what we're paying out in wages. So it is mismanagement in 23-24, sorry. Yeah. So I mean that proves if somebody does buy it, we're in quite a good position, to be honest. There's no external debt, but the reasons why we think that he won't sell, we can't really say. But I'm sorry, we can't answer every question. But you can make your own assumptions. Yeah, all right. Young man, yeah, go on, sir.
Young man, I haven't been called that for a while. How much is the club liable for in terms of debt? Or how much is the associated companies liable in terms of the debt? Or how much is he liable for the debt? Because to me a sale is dependent upon where the debt lies and who is seen to be liable, or what entities seem to be liable for it.
It's a good question. Yeah, James will answer that.
I think Simon might be able to supplement this answer a little bit, but in terms of the Sheffield Wednesday accounts, the external debt, barring the New Avenue Projects Limited debt, is exclusively to Chancery. Now, where Chancery is getting his funding from is a different question, but Sheffield Wednesday's external debt is just to New Avenue Project Limited and to Chancery. And to be fair, it's what apparently in football finance circles is called soft loans, so it doesn't have a repayment date and it is interest-free. But it's a lot of money that is put into the club via soft loans, and so it's, I can't remember, is it, I think about 120 million is put in of the 167 as being via soft loans. Yeah.
Yeah, just further to that, I mean, I know everybody gets scared and gets upset about the situation. Yeah, the club's in a mess, but we don't need to describe it as worse than it actually is. We're not really actually in massive amounts of debt. We're not. That's the situation. It's been mismanaged and there's lots of problems and we can't pay the wages, we can see that, but we're not burdened by massive amounts of debt. And in terms of HMRC, everyone keeps being scared of HMRC, and you have every right to be. Well, the EFL embargo system means you have to report it if you don't pay within 2 days. So we know where we are with HMRC. We were up to date up until very, very recently. So we probably haven't paid last month, but that's it. So we do have a small amount of debt, but HMRC don't wind up companies 2 weeks after the amount was due. It just simply doesn't happen. So I know we're all scared and thinking, what if this, what if that? And you should be scared because eventually they will wind up the company, but we're nowhere near that position at this moment in time. We are maybe 1 month behind, possibly even less than that. We don't even know. Maybe he paid the HMRC bill on the 22nd of last month, and that's why he couldn't pay the wages. Nobody knows the answer, but worst case scenario, we're a month behind. So we're not going to get rounded by HMRC. And like I said, New Avenue was the only other thing, and that's secured, and that doesn't run out until, I think it's September. So they're not doing anything until September. We're not an immediate threat from that point of view.
So I would say him hawking off our asset Hillsborough is effectively a debt. To me it's so he's basically had a splurge, he pissed it up the wall, and then he sold that company off, managed to mess up selling it off, so we got relegated anyway. And now there's a loan against that, which seems to be quite high interest. We can't afford to pay it over, we're rolling it over. Who's paying it? Sheffield Wednesday, the season ticket holders. The money's going out every year. To me, it's virtually a debt. I know it's sort of a rent payment, but before he splurged it on roads and whoever else, we weren't having to pay that rent payment. We could have players, and it was making the club more sustainable. So that's, to me, it's in all words a debt. I think something like that.
Obviously the money is a big issue for Chancery refusing to sell. How much of it is also ego and some of his culture? He likes to think a lot of himself. We've been given that impression by your customers. I'm in charge, you know, instead of... So I just wondered, those that have dealt with him and spoke to him,
I think it's part of it. It's not entirely it.
No, I know, it's not entirely, but do you think it's having a big influence, like fear of failure with relation to his culture and his family?
My opinion is yes. Again, I'm sorry, Simon's been closer to him, and Simon will tell you, but yeah, from the feedback I've had off people, it's part of it, yeah.
That's the impression.
He's a proud man, and to be honest...
He's a stubborn man as well.
Yeah, he's not... people are going to go by me in here when I say this, but I don't think he's a bad man.
No.
I honestly don't, no. And he started off with good intentions, but he's just gone too far. He's just gone too far, that's it, yeah.
Not knowing when enough's enough.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that saying's 100% right, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, thank you.
There's another guy over there, and if there's nobody else, I want to try and wind this up. There's one at back as well, Si. So just pick these two off, will you, please?
Cheers. James, it's a question for you on the finances. So I worked in Thailand for about 5 or 6 years, and through contacts I still have there, I agree with you, 2018, where his investment dropped off a cliff. My contacts in Thailand are now saying that his borrowing since then is cause for concern over there. So the question is, if he's borrowing from unscrupulous lenders in the Far East, does that get transferred on a sale, or does that stay incumbent with the club? That's my first question. The second question is culturally. All major PLCs in Thailand report into the royal family of Thailand. So now the Chancery family are getting pressure from the royal family of Thailand, and I have that on good authority. So the thing in answering the question on the board there, what do we do, is to keep putting personal pressure onto the Chancery brand, because that will have a massive impact in Thailand and in the Bangkok press. So there's guys here, Alex, Rob, Dom, you've got a role to play in this by really kind of putting on that Chancery brand and the issues that it's causing this football club that we call ours.
So in terms of the first question, I'm afraid I don't know. I don't have an answer for you, but I know a finance subgroup who you should be working with, given those contacts. So if you're interested, come and have a word with me during the event. And yeah, second question, absolutely agree. I'll pass over to Ian in a minute for that. In answer to the gentleman over here, because few years ago, I was chair of the trust for a few years, and I met him 3 times. And I've got to say, I thought, just to counteract what's been said by Ian and Simon in the past, I thought he was an obnoxious prick.
I think the pressure on all the external stuff has already worked, as you've seen with the John West statement. I think it works, emailing, doing whatever you can, put pressure on, because as this young man said over here, the culture plays a lot into decisions that are made in business, and if he's under pressure, he's going to sell. Now, as James touched on the soft loans thing, I think that's where the big problem is for his sale. But again, we don't know, we can't say. But that is my feeling, is that's one of the things that he wants ridiculous amounts of money for the club. He keeps dropping in price. He keeps coming somewhere near where the consortium that's trying to buy it now are at, and we think that's a fair price. We think, in fact, we think it's better than a fair price. So it's above the market value, and the only reason we think that he don't want to sell, and this is my opinion, and some of the board, not everybody, but I think that there's a lot of soft loans against the club that he's responsible for that's repayable on the sale of the club, and that's dictating what he's up to. But I can't go any deeper than that because we don't know, it's not a fact. Any more guys? Yeah, there's a young man there. What I'd like to do then, if we can, I've noticed that Chris Turner's at the Big Wednesdayite. I'd like to get him up to say a few words just before, so I know Chris wants to get off, so I'd like to get him involved if we can. All right.
We know of one bid for the club. Do we know of any other credible buyers that are interested in Sheffield Wednesday that you guys or people that you know about? Because it would be probably better for everybody if there were multiple purchasers out there. Or is that an unknown question?
Probably Simon will allude you to that. I'm sorry.
I'm on roving mics, that's my job, roving mics.
Yeah. But we understand there is, but I don't think there's been any proper bids tabled, if that's the thing. Mr. Chancery keeps alluding to the fact he's got interested parties. Nobody's seen that or heard that. Probably Simon can just expand on that a bit if he can, as much as you can, mate. I'm sorry, I don't want to keep putting you on spot, mate. But yeah.
On spot, I don't mind. It's under the bus, then. Yeah, obviously, I've sort of made it my business to stick my nose in to anybody who might well be interested in buying the club. Just I've appointed myself as the person to liaise with that. Spent a lot of time talking to lots of different people. There has been a hell of a lot of interest. That's one thing we're going to discuss later on. When someone said nobody will buy the club, absolutely not the case. Lots and lots of people were very, very interested. And they come along and they look at the club and they look at the valuation, and then they get told what the buying procedure is. They get told how they've got to go about it. They get told this is the hurdles you've got to jump over. These are the hoops you've got to jump through. These are the rods you've got to get underneath. This is what you've got to say. This is what and they go, do you know what, it's not for me. And that is the reality. There are people who want to buy the club and they just can't manage to find a way to navigate the difficulty. And all of this has to be done before you get to sit down and discuss a price. You are required to jump through all these hurdles first of all, and then when you do get down to the price, it's nowhere near a price anyone's going to bid. There's lots and lots of rumours, and I took a hell of a lot of stick for dismissing the rumours because I know you don't want that to happen, but the reality is there has been interest and interest only. And I know people have got excited about certain ones and think I've got a vested interest in that not being the case. Not so at all. I want someone to come and buy our club as much as anybody else in this room does. But the reality is there has been one bidder and one bidder only. They have been the only people who have been interested in actually going through the process. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Is there any specific bidder you want me to answer the questions on? So I know one or two have got some keen ones. Denver Broncos, anybody? No. I'll very quickly explain to know that's the one that everybody gets excited about and that falls out of me over most of all. When you're selling a business, if ever you've been involved in that, very often you'll find people will approach and try and offer to offer their services So I know a lot of one or two local fans prepare what they call an investment memorandum, which is able to show you what a club should be worth and that sort of thing. It was circulated around a lot of people. As a result of that, a sports group in America who are brokering businesses approached the club and said, we would like to represent you to our clients in America. We think we can find you a buyer. And if we were going to find you a buyer, we think we'd be able to get you £100 million for it. And we're very good at finding buyers. We work with lots of people, and these are the sort of people we've worked with. We worked with blah, 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 and we included Welton Pennant Group and their purchase of the Denver Broncos. So that was what happened. That was true. The information came through. Somebody wanted to broker the club on that behalf. I don't know who found that information, I don't know who saw it, but somebody saw it, didn't know what they were really reading, got excited and said, yeah, the Denver Broncos people are buying our club for $100 million. It was just simply that's all it was. I don't know as it went any further. I don't think anybody actually even marketed the club, and I'm 99.9% certain that people who own the Denver Broncos were never involved in any of that. They just had their name listed as someone who had been worked with. Most of the rumours that you get are along those kind of lines. It's just simply Chinese whispers. Somebody hears them. We're all excited. We want something to happen, don't we? And we think, oh, this is fantastic. This is the latest one. They're all that kind of thing. I wish that wasn't the case. I'd love to say, yeah, brilliant, they are doing it. I certainly would like them to be sold, but no, we've nothing.
Thanks, Simon.
Is the price dropping day by day?
I'm going to let me answer your question later on, because I'm only doing them right, genuinely. I'll happily answer questions later, not trying to avoid it. I'll answer the question I can.
Sorry, mate, you've got chucked in at deep end before your time, as per usual. Chris, I wonder if you'd like to come forward, say a few words, please. Please welcome Mr. Turner. Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Being very patient, young man. All right.
I feel ill looking at that picture. I think it's horrendous. And I think the presentation that James has done has been absolutely superb. He analyses what the situation is, the lies that we've been told. I'm here as a Wednesday fan, not as an ex-player, ex-manager, ex-footballer, whatever. I'm here because I'm one of you. I'm a supporter, and I'm really, really concerned about what's happening at our club. When you go onto the football side of it, we haven't got a team for next season. Looks as though we haven't got a manager. We've sold one of the best young players in the club, which is good and bad, because hopefully it's not going to give him some money to rally round for the next 2 or 3 months and then pay HMRC and pay a few wages here, etc. So we need this man out. He's got to go, and in any way, shape we can do it, we have to do it. Turning backs on a game and walking to matches are all good, don't get me wrong, but I ain't going to remove him. He's a proud man. Thai people are very proud people, and he's going to be difficult to go. If there's somebody tomorrow going to buy the club, got the money for the club, it'll be a good 4 or 5 months before that's done. And with the crap that you've seen that they've found, and there'll be more, it's going to be very hard. So we've got to be patient. And I think as individuals, we have to be patient, because we all want the same thing. We want the club to survive, we want it to thrive, and whoever buys it, we want them to be the right people. We want them to come, look at the club, take the club on, peel back everything back, and start again, because that's what's needed. The academy's run well, but underfunded for years. Them down the road have been so far in front of us in the first team, in the under 21s, in the youth teams, in the academy teams. It's embarrassing. And this twat here don't give a fuck about it. Sorry, ladies. And when you see a friend of mine sitting at the table talking to Radio Sheffield and that, saying about the 16 or 15 things that they're better than us, he's right, unfortunately. He's right. Chris Wilder's right. And I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed about it. And the support that we have, home and away is incredible. But unfortunately, as it's shown on there, the support that we've got is the one thing that's keeping him in power. Because if we didn't have the support, and we didn't buy the season tickets, and we didn't buy the crap shirts that he keeps producing, he wouldn't have no money or extra money. He'd have to either borrow it again, or he'd have to pack his bags and go. My personal thing is, we try and starve him at the input of money going into the club. So he has to find it, or he has to go. We're all passionate about the club, and I think we all should keep calm in terms of when the trusts are doing something or the other parties are doing. I think you've got to get together, work as one, and we have a chance. But we're going to have to be patient, because it's going to be hard to get rid of, as we've seen over the last 10 years. Worst chairman we've ever had. Worst chairman, owner we've ever had. So I'd like to thank the Trust for inviting me here tonight. We've got John Newsom here as well, John, an ex-player. And the players, think of the players, how the players, like Barry Bannon, the captain tonight, how does he feel? He doesn't know when he's going to get his wages. Doesn't matter how much you earn, the outgoings are still going out and the money's not coming in. What's he thinking about next season? What are the other players thinking about next season? What about the staff in the ground who do very, very important jobs, not getting paid, even probably worse for them? So there's a lot of sad, unhappy people at the club, and we've got to hope there's a miracle. And my last thing is, where have the EFL been over the last 5 years when these embargoes that we haven't found out about, where have they been? The warning signs have been there, and we are where we are today, where we're talking about the possibility of administration might be the best thing. I'll tell you now, administration is going to be horrendous, absolutely horrendous. But if it is the only way you can go, we might have to drop down a few leagues and then come back stronger, better, and bigger. And my biggest point about him, for me, has always been prices. I had a go at somebody at the club about 8 years at the cricket inn at Sheffield United, and I told him that day, this guy's destroying this club. Oh no, he said, no. The prices are a joke, and they've been a joke, and the best supporters are well, not the best, the most important ones are season ticket holders, we know. But the next after that is the ones who were this high when I was 5, and my mum and dad took me to Hillsborough. They're the most important, the future of the club. And if you can't afford to go on a Saturday afternoon because it's 42 quid to watch Peterborough or Cambridge or other clubs like that, no disrespect to them, they ain't going to go because you can't afford to go. And the young supporters of tomorrow are our future and this club's future. There's no future with that guy in charge. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Fantastic. I think everybody sort of empathises with what he's just said. I think what we're going to do is we're going to have a short break. When we come back, we're going to have Simon to speak properly. There's a bit of food on at back. You can get a beer. And then right at the end, we're going to have a question and answer session for everybody for your input into what you want the Trust to do. So, and don't forget, Mr. Nielsen's got to speak, yeah? The big man at the back. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Cheers. I'm sure he's going to speak very profoundly. I've heard him on the radio and he's spot on with what he likes to say. So I'd like to welcome Mr. John Nielsen, please. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. What can I say? First of all, thanks for inviting me along. It's great to see as many people down here. Obviously, I'm a Sheffield lad, brought up in Winkerbank, always been a Wednesday fan, just like you guys. Find it really upsetting, a bit like Chris Turner was. I'm not going to rip my shirt off and shout and dance on the stage like he nearly did, but yeah, you know, this football club goes back a long way, lot longer than any of us have been around. And we've got a tyrant, we've got a narcissist who's in charge, and he's running the club into the ground. And I think we all found out from when COVID hit and we had lockdown, football's nothing without supporters. You know, those empty stadiums, these guys here who do the radio and we did a little bit of commentary stuff, you know, football's absolutely nothing without you guys and the supporters. And as soon as these, and it's not just Chancery, but as soon as a lot of these owners who are coming in and buying football clubs realise that the heart, blood and the lifeline is you guys, the sooner the better. My concern, obviously I'm as passionate as you guys about it all, my concern is what happens next. You know, I think the biggest thing for me is that there's such a lack of information coming out of the football club. You know, the concern that, Lord James, it was a fabulous presentation, but to see that they've not paid wages time and time and time again, they've been late paying the wages time and time again, but this one seems different for me. It's 2 weeks, I think, since the wages were due. You know, when I was down at Sheffield Wednesday, I think we got paid on the last Friday of every month. So by my calculation, that's the 29th of May. So he's a good 2 weeks late in paying people. I got confirmation from one of the first team lads last night that he'd definitely not been paid. And just talking to Rob over there, again, by my calculation, I think he's got 2 weeks to start paying people, because in the FIFA regulations, if as a footballer you don't get paid for 2 months, and bearing in mind you get paid in arrears, so you're getting paid at the end of the May, but that is for the whole of May. If you don't pay in June, those players can terminate the contract and walk out the door. Now, we've already lost a number of players from last season. Just on a side note, I don't think he's bothered about an embargo, because he fishes in a pond of frees and loans. He don't really put his hand in his pocket and buy players. He doesn't. I've tried to deal with him. I work as an agent as well as doing some football stuff. I've tried to deal with the football club probably a couple of years ago, and I think Simon said about, you know, banging your head against a brick wall and hurdles to overcome. And it was exactly the same, trying to get a player into the club. You know, the contracts that they send you across, there's clauses, the addendums that are in it, are just, from my point of view, they're made by non-football people. You know, I think he comes up with an idea and he wants to put it in and he wants to implement it, but he doesn't think it through. It's become a mess, hasn't it? It really has. How do we overcome it? I'm not too sure. You know, Chrissy Turner said, don't put your hand in your pocket, don't go and support the club. But that's easier said than done, isn't it? You know, because we all want to turn up on a Saturday, we all want to cheer the lads on, we all want to have a good season. But where does it take us? I don't know the answer. I don't know if anybody does have the answer. But all I can say is that as a group of people, as a group of individuals, as a group of supporters, you know, playing out on that pitch, you're second to none. It was a dream for me to do that since being 4 or 5 years of age, and I was lucky, really lucky to manage to do it. But the importance of what you do as supporters to players is off the scale. It really is. It means a lot to players. I can only speak from my point of view, but you know, when you run out there and you guys are behind you and they talk about cliches, they talk about you being the 12th man, that kind of stuff, and it really does mean a lot. So all I can say to you is continue doing what you're doing, continue supporting the trust. Let's try and get some information out of the football club at some point, and fingers crossed in maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 months time, it might be a little bit of a different picture. Thanks. Thanks ever so much.
Thanks, John. Fantastic. Cheers, guys. So this is the moment you've all been waiting for. Mr. 1867 Youngs himself. Mr. Simon Quick's here just to get a few bits and bats about what's going off with the takeover, etc. He's the man in the know. Please welcome him, Mr. Simon Quick. Thank you.
Thanks very much for having me there. So I'll explain just very, very briefly where I came from, what I'm doing. I'm just simply a fan, nothing more than that. I'm just simply somebody who has appointed himself to stick his nose in, as I said. I'm not involved with anybody else. I'm not even involved in Supporters Trust. I'm just simply a member of it. I'm not involved with any particular consortium, and I certainly don't work for the club. But I've just sort of I've advised people and talked to people and irritated people and phoned people and made contacts as much as I possibly can for these last few months. Simply because it started at the fans forum, the proper fans forum, or the official fans forum. This is the proper fans forum, isn't it? The official fans forum, when Chancery said in a fit of pique, "Find me a buyer," you know, and Jim took that literally. I thought, well, yeah, how hard can it be? So I took it literally and set about seeing what we could find. So yes, it's been a whirlwind of a ride and a roller coaster up and down. We've spoken to lots of different people. We've spoken to some of the biggest accountancy firms in the world, spoke to some of the biggest sports brokers in the world. There's not actually as many of them as you'd imagine there are, and it's actually not that difficult to be able to get an appointment as I imagined it would be. They were all very interested in seeing if there's some way they could help to be able to market or to sell Sheffield Wednesday. And all of them tell the same kind of story. We sell sports clubs all the time. We've got lots of clients. They're all millionaires and billionaires. We know all of them. We will produce a document, we'll send it all around to them, and we guarantee somebody will buy it. They'll buy the club. Fantastic, don't worry about it. So we had those kind of meetings with lots of big sports agencies. I provided lots of information, and I expected they were going to laugh at me for being a complete rank amateur, but they said, no, it is fine, but we're happy with that. They produced a document, stuck their logo on the front of it, sent it to all the world's millionaires. And there was some interest. There was quite a bit of interest. People came back asking questions and asking details. What can they do? What's it going to cost? How do we go about it? But the biggest question that everybody wanted to know, just nobody could answer. How much does he want for the club? Does he want to sell this club? Because he keeps saying that he doesn't. And instantly you start to put people off. They don't want to be in this situation where they have uncertainty. They want the answers, and answers couldn't be provided. So although there was interest, it very, very quickly begins to wane. We did speak to people in Saudi Arabia, spoke to 2 or 3 different groups. I was invited to Riyadh. I don't know what to do, I don't speak Arabic, haven't got a clue, so I declined. We've spoken to some of the people in New York, and we've spoken to people in Russia, we've spoken to people all over the place. And the sum total of all of that effort is, all we are left with is simply the same one consortium who were here back in January. And I know that disappoints 1 or 2 people because they'd like it to be anybody but them. I'm afraid that's just not the case. I don't know of any others. As part of this conversation, I've also had an opportunity to be able to speak to people of the club. A little bit of a tetchy relationship, as I'm sure you can imagine. I also spoke to Mr. Chancery on lots of occasions, most days, quite honestly. So if you wanted me to stick the boot in and get a round of applause for saying bad things about him, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to do that, because he's not going to speak to me ever again. And I think it's important at this moment in time that we have at least some fan representative who has some sort of dialogue with the chairman. And I know lots of people have struggled to be able to get that. At this moment in time, we have some kind of relationship where we do speak. And that means I can't then come on a fans forum and slag the man off. It's just not appropriate for me to do so. It's not appropriate for me to tweet things about that. It would be rude and it would be counterproductive. At the same time, I've also spoken to people who are part of the consortium that were trying to buy it, speak to them on a regular basis. People have asked, am I part of it? The answer is no. Am I getting something out of it? Wish I was, but no. So I'm just simply been trying to act as a conduit, trying to be able to help make the talks go as smoothly as is possible. And it's been quite useful because in a way, I've been able to pass messages backwards and forwards, and there's sort of plausible deniability. Nobody's actually made an official offer or an official suggestion because it was just me and I don't really count. So everybody's kind of used that I'm only a fan and it doesn't really matter. But at the same time, I have been able to relay information backwards and forwards. So where are we? Which is the question that I think everybody kind of wants to know. First thing I think we probably need to be able to discuss is the price, because that's the big one. As part of this process, there's been lots of conversations going on. Kieran Maguire is the leading expert on the matter, and I think we've all become a little bit of an expert on how you value championship football clubs. The prevailing wisdom is 1.5 to 2 times turnover. That's round about what you should be valuing a championship club at. Our turnover is £26.1 million, so that values the club at 39 million to 52 million. Somewhere in that region, that's the going rate. That's the sort of the market value. Now, there's some assumptions in there. The first of all assumption is it's a going concern. You'd imagine that would be the case. You'd imagine it wouldn't be under embargo. You'd imagine it wouldn't be financially distressed. You'd imagine it wouldn't have been having unpaid players. You'd imagine it would have a manager, coaching staff. You would imagine it would have a training ground, grass on the pitch, a captain. You know, all of these things, we can't pretend that they don't matter, because they do. They really do matter. If you're buying the club, you need to know what you're buying. And the value of Sheffield Wednesday, and I know Mr Chancellor gets very angry about this, because he says, oh, you're just trying to take advantage. You're just trying to get the price down so you can lowball me. That's just not the case. The reality of it is, the people out there who want to buy a club in good condition. They want to buy a going concern that they can do minimal changes to, that they can have a run at the Premier League. They want to come and buy us 5 or 6 players, spend a few million, and have a chance at the Premier League, because that's where they get a return on their investment. They don't want to save 10 million quid to buy a basket case. That's just not what they want. It's not attractive. It would be easier to sell Sheffield Wednesday for double the price because we were on the verge of promotion. Then there'd be plenty of buyers. But when we're on the verge of relegation, they're not bothered about saving a few million quid. These people have got millions of pounds. They're not shopping at Aldi. They want to be able to buy the best that they can possibly be able to do. And at this moment in time, Sheffield Wednesday is not that. It's a distressed sale. And Mr Chancellor doesn't like it described as that, but this is not tactics. It is a distressed sale, as it currently is. So, assuming we're in a good condition, 30, 40 million pounds, up to 50 million pounds, I think it's fair to say, and I've said it myself several times, there's no better opportunity in English football than Sheffield Wednesday. It's unique, because everybody loses money in football. If you don't go into it to imagine you're going to make money, but genuinely, Sheffield Wednesday, as it currently is an opportunity to make money. Because we could get promoted to the Premier League, and we are a big enough club to sustain Premier League football. We've just seen the figures on there. We can sustain, just out of you and me, on what we pay, we can almost sustain it. Very few clubs can do that. And very few clubs in the Premier League can do that. We're bigger than half of them, we really are. So this is an opportunity to be able to get promoted and get ourselves to be a mid-tier Premier League team. And in that situation, our turnover will be 250, 275 million pounds. So it's not like your turnover is slightly higher, not like you're 10% or 20%, not even like you're doubling the turnover, it's 10 times the turnover. That's the difference, and that's what excites people. That's why buyers want to come in and be able to buy it. So we could be in the Premier League with 10 times the turnover, and the club would therefore be worth 15 times as much as it currently is, because that's how it works. There's a premium for buying the clubs at the top. It's an exciting proposition, so people would like to buy it, but they want to be able to have a chance of getting there. They don't want to buy a club that's going to go down to League One and maybe spend 2 or 3 years in the wilderness. And you can call them whatever you want to call them about that. We'll have to suffer it. We're going to be here till we die. But if you're a rich millionaire, you just want to buy something nice. You want to buy something that gives you a chance. And we're not as attractive as we could be. So in terms of price, 40, 50, if you really negotiated hard and you got somebody who desperately wanted to buy it, you might get a little bit more than that out of it. That's about the market value. Now, when they first started, the Consortium came in and they made an initial bid, which was $65 million. So that's 37, 30, the exchange rate's kept going since Donald Trump keeps falling out with Elon Musk. And the dollars gets less, as it should be. But we're talking high 30s, nearly £40 million. So the first bid they made was at the bottom end of the scale, but it was at least on the scale. And that was described as derisory. It wasn't derisory. It was a pretty solid opening gambit. I understand that might not have been enough to buy it, but it wasn't derisory, and it was rejected completely out of hand. Not interested at that kind of price. So they went away and thought about it, had a little bit of a look at it and thought, okay, we need to do better. They could see they were able to have some of the financial information that everybody else got later, the wage problems and the financial troubles. 1 or 2 of us knew that was coming a little bit earlier than most people did, and it seemed that this was the right time, since Mr. Chansiri knew that there was going to be problems coming. Maybe this is the time that he was going to sell. And they didn't want to insult the man, because absolutely you don't insult Mr. Chansiri and expect you're going to do business with him. They wanted to go in with a solid offer that represented how certain they were that they wanted to be able to buy this club, and they wanted to go with an offer that he wasn't going to just be able to reject out of hand. They wanted to ask an actual question that he would have no choice but to consider. So they went back in with an offer that was very much at the top end of the range. And I think everyone kind of knows the price, but I'm still technically, I'm not authorised to say it. But they went in with an initial price, which was every penny that the club is worth right now, upfront, in cash, available straight away. They also said, we are going to make sure that you benefit from our success, because we intend to get to the Premier League and we intend to make some money out of it, and when we do, we're going to give some of it to you. So there was millions of pounds on the table to give to Mr. Chansiri as a bonus if we got promoted to the Premier League. And there was more millions of pounds available if they were able to stay there. So he would have been able to benefit from the success of the club and still get 100% of the value of the club right now. Now, I thought that was a fantastic offer, quite frankly. That was an offer that anybody really in this situation could have and probably should have accepted, particularly as he knew at that time that there were financial troubles just around the corner. They could have come and kicked him in the balls and said, we know what's coming, 30 million quid, take it or leave it. But they didn't. They showed him the respect and they said, we're committed to this club, we're going to give you full value and then some. So they offered to pay way more than the market value that people have suggested. And that was turned down. And it was turned down without a counter offer. You would imagine if you could have come back and said, well, make another 5 million, maybe pay me some of the money in advance a little bit earlier, maybe do a bit of this, maybe just I'll keep 30% as a polish. Any sort of combination of deal. I know lots of people suggest, why don't you offer this, why don't you suggest that? Any combination of deal has been discussed. No dice. Now, why he didn't accept it, I just don't know. I think it was an appropriate deal to be able to accept whilst it was available, but he didn't want to do so. At that particular time, Mr. Chansiri's valuation was sort of right out here. Absolute fortunes, the kind of money that there was no way in the world he was ever going to be able to realise. So that kind of ended it, but conversation still went on, and I kept having conversations, and I kept talking, saying, come on, give me something I can go back to them with, let's see what deal we can, there must be something here, particularly as the wages weren't going to get paid. They did everything they possibly could, because everyone knew the wages needed to be paid, and that was a possibility to be able to negotiate as part of the sale process. They were more than happy to provide a deposit payment up front that would have made sure that the wages got paid. They did everything that they could do. And to be fair, Mr. Chansiri, as I said on previously, he came from his price right out here, and he came down to here, and he came down to here. And he moved a long, long way from where he was to where he ended up. But because it started so far away, even though he moved a long, long way, he was still miles apart. And a deal just simply could not be done. And that was unfortunate, because there was an opportunity to do a deal. Let's look at the positive side. When we first started this process, the answer was the club's not for sale. Then we got to, well, it is for sale, but I want crazy money for it. Then it was, I want unrealistic money for it. Then it was, I want too much money for it. And that's kind of where we currently are at this moment in time. So let's try and look at the positive side. The club is available to purchase. It is for sale. So I know we're all protesting and we're all desperate, saying, how can we get him out? What can we do? He's heard. He's listened and he agrees. The club needs to be sold. I asked him this morning, because previously he said if he got the chance, if he could raise the money, he'd carry on. He'd like to soldier on and find a way to do it. I asked him this morning, are you still intending, if you can't sell it, to soldier on? And he is of the opinion that we've kind of gone too far. Even he agrees with that. So, yes, we need to keep the pressure on, and I wouldn't want to dispute that, but he has listened, he has heard, and he's in agreement with us. The club kind of needs to be sold. So it's just a case of when it gets sold, who it gets sold to, and how much it gets sold. So the question I then got to sort of ask is, well, why? Why has he not sold it? Because I would have. And I think there's sort of two main reasons. Number one, there is clearly a major psychological block that prevents him from being able to do it. And I understand his position. I mean, in my job, I trade options on the stock market. So sometimes I have good days, sometimes I have bad days, sometimes I have horrendous days. And sort of 12 months ago, I bought a lot of options in a biotech firm that reckoned they were going to cure Alzheimer's. Couldn't go on, going to make a fortune. And they produced their report, and sure enough, they cured Alzheimer's. 3 days later, turned out it was fraud. 97% of the value gone overnight. Now I sat there with that position on my chart for weeks and weeks and weeks, staring at the loss, because I couldn't bring myself just to close it down. I've lost 97% of my money and I just couldn't close it. But it gets in your head eventually. I'm staring at the losses and I thought, you know what, got to do it. And that was for thousands of pounds. Imagine if I'd lost £150 million. Imagine the psychological block that there is there. Massive, massive issue. And I think for a long, long time in his own mind, whilst ever there was a chance that he might just get promoted, and let's be honest, last Christmas, we were all thinking, it might happen, you never know, it's possible. We might get to the playoffs, and once you get there, it's anybody's game. There was a chance he was going to get redemption. And whilst there was a chance, he wanted to be able to roll the dice and see if that could happen. But I think we've kind of got to the point where even Mr. Chansiri realises it's just never going to happen. So there's a psychological block. You've also got a man who just doesn't sell anything, does he? I mean, we've just looked at 10 years. All those players that's come through the doors, how many of them did we sell? We didn't, did we? The only transfer income we got was Steve Bruce, and he walked out, didn't he? We haven't sold anybody. We never do. And that's not because bids never come in, not because people don't want to buy our players, but for some reason he just never gets to the point where he negotiates a fair price for anyone or anything. So imagine how difficult it is to sell the whole club. He just seemed to struggle to do it. And then the second thing, and I know James has just done a fantastic job of that, the numbers of how much money he's put in does tend to vary, but I think most people kind of think it must be £150 million, potentially it's north of that. Mr. Chansey himself thinks it's more than that, and he probably ought to know. It's at least 150. Where did the £150 million come from? I don't know. But the fairly strong evidence is 10 years ago when he bought the club, he wasn't worth £150 million liquid cash. I think that's fairly reasonable. So you've got to say, well, where has it come from in the last 10 years? I genuinely don't know, and I'm not going to come about here and speculate, but you might be in a scenario, and I think it's probably true, as many people have alluded to it, maybe he just can't sell the club for 50 or 60 million pounds, because that might leave a shortfall of 100 million pounds, which he hasn't clearly got. Because if you can't pay the wages, you certainly can't pay 100 million pounds if it becomes due immediately. So that's my guess. That's not stating that as facts, but I would imagine it's probably not that far away from the mark. So we're in trouble. There's no point pretending that's not the case. The club is in trouble, and Mr. Chansiri personally is in trouble. He's not going to walk away from this in any good mood. He's not going to go away and spend his millions on a beach in Bangkok and Thailand or wherever he happens to be going, that is not going to be the solution for him. He's going to take the pain. So a lot of people think, yeah, he deserves that, and I'm not necessarily going to argue with that, but he's not going to walk away from this happily at all. So we've got difficulty. Where do we go from there? Well, realistically, I mean, John has just said there he thinks he's probably got 2 weeks left. I wouldn't argue with that. There are a lot of issues. I did a podcast, the very first, I think the second one I did, I said there's all manner of things that are coming his way, and I listed about 5 things. I said any one of those could be the end of it, and I think we can tick off 2 or 3 of them as saying, yeah, those chickens have come home to roost. Kind of expected he wouldn't see the summer out, and it looks to me like he won't. Where do we go from there? We mentioned administration. He's not going to be financially better off for administration. It's still worth 50 million quid at the best. Only with administration it might only be 30 or 40 million pounds. Minus the administrator's fees. That doesn't make it better. The only way this gets resolved is for him to pick up the phone and say, go on then, let's do a deal. Here's the price. You can have the club. It's available. He has done that, but not at a price anyone's going to pay. So there still is a bidder that is sat there waiting who will pay a fair price and has already offered beyond fair market value. So there is hope. We have a buyer and we have a seller. We just simply need to find a way for them to be able to meet somewhere in the middle at a price that is realistic. But we have to do it very quickly, because there may well be a situation whereby the decision is taken out of Mr. Chancellor's hands for any one of 3 or 4 different reasons. He might have no choice but to divest himself of his assets. And you'd like to hope at that particular point that the buyers are still interested in buying the club in whatever state it happens to find itself in. So I can't sugarcoat it for you. It's not good. And it will come to a head sometime soon. And by sometime soon, I think we're talking weeks. I don't think we're talking months. And even Mr. Chancellor doesn't want to continue realistically into next season, whereas previously he did. So you've got to tell us as good news. It's not very much good news, is it? But at least we can kind of see where we're going with that. If you want me to guess, I think at some point he picks up the phone. I think he has to. At some point he's going to say, right, okay, what's the best offer? Don't kick me too hard. And hopefully the people at the other end will have some respect for him like they did last time around, and they will do the best offer that they can do. If they are able to buy it, we'll be okay. And I know a lot of people have got some reservations, and I know they don't like certain characters and certain things that have been said and done. It's a consortium of a lot of people, business people, who know how to run businesses. There's ex-sports professionals who know how to be part of sports teams, who know how a sports team should be run. There are people who have been founders of businesses you will have heard of, that you will know, and you will know where their wealth came from. And there are people who have been successful in various different aspects of business. These aren't fools. They know how to run a club. And they are not going to come across here and say, we know everything, we're going to sort all this out. They are going to employ proper football people, and where possible, Sheffield-based football people, and where possible involve Sheffield Wednesday fans. They're going to build from the bottom, and they're going to build a sustainable future. And I know lots of people have been asking, and all the question is, how much money have they got? Are they billionaires? Because if you're not billionaires, we don't want you. You're not going to have enough money to be able to run a club. And we've just seen from the figures there, Mr. Chancellor is running it on peanuts. Now, I'm not proposing that the next owners runs it on peanuts, but you don't need to be a billionaire. The EFL say you can only lose £13 million per year. There's more than 13 people in the consortium. So as long as they're rich enough to lose £1 million each, we're all right. They're still going to be rich. I can't lose £1 million a year. Sure, nobody else can. But you don't need to be a billionaire to be able to be part of a consortium that can lose a maximum of nearly £14 million in a year. That's not to say they're going to be skint, because everyone says, oh, well, that sounds like they've got the money. You're going to do it on the cheap. No, they're not. But the EFL rules limit how much money can be spent on a football club. And they can spend up to that limit. And realistically, as long as you can do that, you're rich enough to be able to do the club. And I think so many of us have been asking the wrong question. We're asking, how rich are these people? Well, we've just seen what happens when you get somebody who's got a bit of money on those figures, and they chuck it out the club for 2 or 3 years, and it doesn't work. What happens? It's disaster, doesn't it? It doesn't work, because they get fed up, they run out of money, they think, why am I throwing good money after bad? They turn the taps off. Lots of football club owners have turned the taps off when it hasn't worked for them. And if they don't turn the taps off, the EFL comes along and says, stop spending because you're going to get an embargo. You're going to get points deduction. We've lived it. We know it. What we need to be asking is not how much money have you people got. We need to be asking, what's your plan? How are you going to run our club? Because we want our club run in a sustainable manner. What does sustainable mean? It means losing less than £13 million per year. It means not being reliant upon the owner putting millions and millions of pounds in and charging us millions and millions of pounds. It means being run in such a way as the club can be sustained on its own, left to its own devices. It can run itself. And we're very fortunate, we're a big enough club to do that. There's so many of us, and we're so devoted to being fans. If we just got a little bit of hope, if we just felt part of it, if we just got welcomed by the owners, we'd spend all our money, we'd be happy to do it, wouldn't we? We'd all be buying tickets, and all those people who said, I'm not coming back until he's gone, well, those people would come back. We'd get 30,000 people there. We'd get 35,000 people there. We would all come. And if you served us some nice food, we'd buy it. If there was a prospect of a nice kit, we'd buy it. We all do, don't we? We're fortunate enough, we're at a club that can be sustained. So we need to ask that question. What's your plan? How are you going to sustain our club? How are you going to make sure we don't have boom and bust? That's what we need to be looking at. And I've asked that question of the new prospective owners. I'm satisfied with their answers. Hopefully you'll get the chance to ask them the questions. Hopefully you will be. So that's my bit. Anybody got any questions you'd like to ask me?
Thank you for that. Very informative. We're all in a room full of people who buy with their heart, not their head. And we probably, most of us will continue to do so. I asked you a question a bit earlier, and I think I jumped the gun a little bit, but if I don't have any skin in the game and any emotional tie to this deal, why don't I wait until it gets worth less and less and less and ends up on its knees before I then pick it up for a song?
It's an excellent question. And the people who are doing this are businessmen, first and foremost, hard-nosed businessmen to some degree. However, you've also got one or two characters as part of that consortium who are a little bit more soft and have got a little bit more of a soft spot for Sheffield Wednesday. And it's the guy who everybody keeps giving them lots and lots of abuse for. He's the guy who really wants this to be done. He's the guy who feels sad for the staff who didn't get paid. He's the guy who wanted to pay it out of his own pocket. And he gets nothing but abuse. And the answer is, you've got on the consortium a lad from Sheffield who's made good. And his dream has been to be able to buy his local football club, who he's supported since he was a boy. And his dream is to be able to find some way to give it back to the fans. Because these are all his mates, these are all his fellow people where he lives, this is where his family is, this is the club he's supported since he was a boy, and he simply doesn't want them to go anywhere else. And that's simply the question. They came along to Mr. Chancery knowing that there was trouble, knowing that we were going to have an embargo, knowing the wages couldn't be paid, and didn't come and kick him in the balls. Came and made him a very generous offer. And to me, I think that counts for a lot. That tells you a little bit about the calibre of the people who you're dealing with. That tells you what their intentions are. That tells you how they're going to treat us and how they're going to treat our club. They did not come to take advantage of the situation. And it's unfortunate in my situation that they were not able to buy it on that basis. Because absolutely they had the question, they had the conversation for hours asking the same question you asked. Why don't we just simply see it on its knees, and then we just simply come and we grind it into the ground and we say 30 million quid, take it or leave it, because you know you can't do anything else about it. But they didn't. They came and offered a fair price and beyond that. And I think that speaks well to their character.
As a fan base where the consortium are concerned, what impression does the consortium have of the fans, and how important are the fans to that consortium? And with recent events with Mr. Chancery and all the social media outbursts, what impression has that given the consortium of the fans and what they can be like?
Headline is, they think we're fantastic. It's us they're buying. Simple as that. They have seen the videos from Wembley, they've seen how we turn out in our numbers, they've seen what we do, they watched our away fans going there all the way through and selling out everywhere. They think we are an absolutely enormous asset, and it's us that they are buying. That's why we are worth such a tremendous amount of money. That's the positive. The negative, we're a bit toxic at this moment in time, aren't we? Quite frankly. You know, we abuse our own, we try to bring down people who are trying to help. You know, I've had a hell of a lot of abuse for just simply trying to be part of it. You know, and it's unnecessary, it's not right. People wouldn't say it to your face, but they'll say it online. It's a major issue. And if you want to know why the rest of the consortium don't just jump up and down and say, hey, here we are, part of the reason is because if you mention your name, everybody gets on Google and goes, oh, look, he's no good, he's got no money, you've all done it, you've all seen it, you've all read it, probably you've retweeted it and passed it on, you've seen it on Facebook. We're a little bit toxic. These are guys who are serious businessmen who have got business reputations to uphold, and they don't want to be slagged off by thousands of people. So that's something that just, I've got to say, I don't want to do, but it does need to be addressed. And it's only a few, because the vast majority are salt of the earth and decent people, and they want to see this go further forward. But we have got quite a number of people who are more than a little toxic. So they think we are fantastic, and they are buying the club because of us. They are not as visible as they could be, also because of us.
How much are they worth?
So I didn't just say we're not asking the right questions here. Nobody has asked me what's their plan. I'll answer the question. They are all significantly wealthy gentlemen. They have all done fairly well. They are, with the exception of one, self-made. And it's rude to talk about everybody's personal finances, but I would say they are in the tens of millions, up to one or two into the hundreds of millions. If you add the net worth of everybody together, I think you're comfortably into 1 or 2 billion. They have significant funds that's available. Some of them are doing this as an investment, but by and large, they're doing this because they love football and they think it'd be fun to stick a few £1 million in their own English football team. And they can afford to stick a few £1 million in and not really miss it. So they have significant wealth, enough wealth to be able to get the job done. But, I'm going to say it another time for everybody who didn't hear it, that's not the question, is it? Can we ask the correct question? Thank you! Finally. They are setting about a plan built upon over 3 phases. Phase number 1 is stabilise this club. That needs to be done. Put out the fires. Sort out all the massive problems that we have got. They simply need to be able to make sure that we are not in danger of going to League One, that we can pay people, and that we can make sure we've got safety certificates and people can get in there, and that our capacity is what it should be. All the things that you all know that we don't need to be able to list. Phase 1, stabilise the club as a championship club. In order to be able to give us a chance at promotion, Danny Rowe said last season, and I think he's absolutely bang on, you need a squad value of around £75 million. And we're probably 60 million short of that at this moment in time. And you can't spend £60 million to get there, because FFP doesn't allow it. So you've got to be creative. We need a £75 million squad, and that's probably going to take 2 or 3 years of building. They're going to have to buy cheap young players, 23 and under, and that means that they tend to be a bit unreliable. The flop rate is about 60%. So what that basically means is you need to buy 20 players who are 23 years old and younger, and you assume 12 of them will amount to nothing at all. They will just simply flop. Of that, your remaining 8 players, 5 of those will be good, solid, championship standard squad players. 3 of them will hopefully be worth a few £1 million. And if you want to see if that plan can work, you watch the playoff final. Sunderland have just got promoted to the Premier League. What was the net cost of their squad? They're up about £15 million profit, having just sold Joe Bellingham. It can be done if you do it. But what Sunderland did was they started 4 or 5 years ago, and they took the time, they were patient, the fans didn't get on the back, the owners didn't lose the bottle. When they were struggling a little bit, they carried on with it because they knew in the end it would work out. And they got promoted to the Premier League at 0 cost. They made a profit on it, and they have a squad value £75 million plus, even after selling Bellingham. That's what can be done. That's what we should be doing. But it probably will take us 3 years, 4 years at least to give ourselves a chance. But every year or two, Sunderland sold a player for 10, 15, 17, 20 million pounds, and that funded all of their development. The contrast is Sheffield United, who spent a hell of a lot of money. And they spent it pretty well, we all know that, I'm not going to try and slag them off. Chris Wilder did a reasonable job. Did, past tense I think. Breaking news. Not being confirmed, but I think that might well be the case. No, it's true. They spent a lot of money, they got there. We can't spend the money Sheffield United spent, but they lost. The club who didn't spend the money, who were clever, who took the time and thought about it, they're the club that's now in the Premier League. And they're the club that will be sustainable in the Premier League because they will continue on the same basis. Just like Brighton did, just like Brentford have done. They're the third team to be able to look at this in a sensible way and approach it in the right way and not just say, we want a billionaire to throw stupid amounts of money. That's how you build a championship club. That's how you go to the Premier League. That's how you remain sustainable. So phase one is they need to be able to start buying cheap players under 23, free or 200 or 300 grand, just like they've done, and take their time. And everybody here has to bear that in mind, buy into the plan, understand it, and not start booing and complaining when it hasn't worked, when the 19-year-old is not the finished article, that kind of thing. Take our time and look at it. Phase two of their plan is to be able to hopefully get promotion. But in phase two, you're kind of expecting there may be a bit of yo-yoing. Lots of clubs go up, come down, go up, come down. Phase two is to be able to get to the Premier League and find a way to get a foothold and finish 17th. That's phase two. Phase three of their plan is to get us to mid-table or better in the way that Wolves have done, or Aston Villa have done, or Brighton and Brentford and these kind of teams. All teams that are not bigger than us, not more special compared to us. That will be phase three. We can do that. We can achieve that. It will require extra funding as it goes along. It will require improvements to the stadium as it goes along. It will require us to buy players, but it will also require us to sell players as it goes along. That's how you build a sustainable club. That's their plan. That's what they're intending to do. I think that makes much more sense than saying, can we get some Saudis to spend $1 billion?
Hi Simon. First of all, can I just say a massive thanks to you, to Ian. There's a lot of people in the background as well who have put a serious amount of time and effort into trying to improve our football club in these last few months and years. It takes some bollocks to speak out and put your head above the parapet. And we've got a part of our fan base that likes to criticise and throw stones when a lot of people just sit on their arse and do nothing. It's quite easy to do that. So I'm grateful, and I suspect most people in this room are really grateful for all the hard work as well. Please don't listen to the idiots and keep up the hard work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just a couple of questions. Simon, you mentioned obviously...
Sorry, it can have to be a quick one because I'm getting told this is time's up, so...
Okay.
Sorry, go on.
I'll just ask one question then. You said obviously before that you're kind of a go-between in a minute, and obviously you're trying to maintain that dialogue with the owner, and obviously you've got to try and keep respectful. As a fan base, what do you think we ought to do as a collective right now? Because is there anything we can do to help the current situation as a collective?
You're not going to want to hear me say this. Mr. Chancellor has heard the message. So we can keep saying it, and we probably should keep saying it, but he's heard the message. We can say it in an angry, nasty way, and I think there's justification for that. It isn't going to make it any better. We simply need to persuade him that we really want him to be able to do the right thing. And I think an appeal to his better nature is probably going to be more successful than making threats and shouting and calling abuse. And I absolutely 100% certain it's better than tagging his children on social media. He's complained about that again this morning. It makes him angry and it makes him want to retaliate. And I understand why I'm a father. People attack my children, I would want to retaliate. That does not help anybody at all. So we need to keep the pressure up on it. I'm not trying to go soft here. I'm trying to be pragmatic. He knows, he understands. We need him to simply pick up the phone and to do a deal at a price that can be done. And we also need to encourage the other side. let's be encouraging of the people who are trying to save the club and who are interested in that. Let's stop spreading it around anyone but them. Because at the moment, there's nobody but them. So we need to be encouraging both sides to sit down, have a conversation, because we could be heading towards the Premier League. And if it doesn't happen, we're heading towards the exit door, aren't we? I think that's the last one.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry guys, I'm acutely aware of time and what we're trying to do, but right at the end there'll be a Q&A and we can go in whatever at that point. What I've got next is Steve Chew, who's a member of the Trust. He's going to discuss this thing that the Trust are launching. It's what we want for Wednesday's best, and a plan, as Simon's just been on about, that we've got ideas for. Again, we want input from you guys when Steve's explained it, but if you'd like to welcome him, Mr. Steve Chew, thank you.
Cheers. Okay, evening everyone. I realise that we've been sat here for over 2 hours and I'm probably the one keeping you from the bar and the exit door, so I'm not going to talk for long, but the Trust has launched today the Better Wednesday Vision document, and we just wanted to say a little bit about it and what it is and why it's important, because we've just sat here for the last 2 hours wallowing in the past 10 years and hearing about the doldrums we're in currently. But what a Better Wednesday is looking to do is look to the future and look at what Sheffield Wednesday we want to create in the future, because this is a bad moment in time, but it's not going to last forever. At some point in time, we are going to have a new owner, we are going to have to engage with a new owner, and as fans and as the Trust, we're going to have to switch from criticising and opposing to actually sitting down with a new owner. As Simon said, what's the plan? What do we want from the ownership of our club to take us forward? This isn't about engaging with Chansiri. That horse is bolted. We know how he runs a football club. But what it's about is the Football Governance Bill, which is going to require the new owner to engage properly with supporters in the future, and making sure that Sheffield Wednesday Supporters Trust knows exactly what it wants to ask from our owner in the future. So what it doesn't contain, it's only been published this afternoon, so I'm sure you haven't had a chance to look at it yet. What it doesn't contain is demands. We're going to win the Premier League, we're going to get into Europe, but it just contains basic requests that we want of any owner: a clear strategy for the future on and off the pitch, a business plan to deliver that strategy, enough money to finance that plan, a club that engages with us as fans and makes us feel welcome when we go into the stadium, good leadership from professional staff who are well treated and get paid, an effective board, a stadium we can be proud of, and a proper football structure from the age of 5 through to the first team. It's not too much to ask, it's just basics of running a professional sports business. So the Trust has published that as a consultation document today for our members and our fans. We'd like you to look at it, to read it. It's on the Trust website now. Email in your thoughts, and what that will do, that will back the Trust, over 3,000 members, to engage with the new owner, whoever it is, whenever it happens, from a really solid position of knowing what Sheffield Wednesday supporters want from our owners. James, do you want to add anything?
Cheers, Steve. Yeah, just to kind of build on what Steve said, really, this document is about putting out a set of ideas and a vision for the things that we want from Sheffield Wednesday Football Club. A Trust and its role is to liaise with stakeholders and, of course, on behalf of our members, and one of those, of course, is the owners of the club. Supporters Trusts aren't set up to decide who the owners should be. They're there to set and establish a series of criteria and framework that we expect from any owner, whomever they may be. And we have to be there as a critical friend to be able to say, well, there's areas of this where you're perhaps falling below the standards of our expectations. There's maybe areas where you're overperforming, and have that dialogue with them. So what we've got here today is a document where we're taking the first steps of that, of what we would expect from owners in the future, whomever they may be. Okay? We can't put all our eggs in one basket and hope that this Florida consortium are going to get the deal done, because they might not, and then we're just going to be left here in the shit, okay? So we have to be working towards a future across all scenarios, okay, whether a takeover happens or not, and that's part of this process of being a responsible organisation with Sheffield Wednesday's best interests at heart. So what we've tried to do, as Steve has said, is put a first kind of framework around what we would expect of any owner in the future. Obviously, we know Chancery can't deliver on any of these. And the bit that I want to just pick up on finally before we go into the Q&A is the element of the plan about an owner in the future treating us as a club that has a distinct identity that reflects our rich heritage, because I think we sometimes forget how important Sheffield Wednesday is within the history of football, and actually Sheffield. Okay, so the first reported game of football in any media outlet was 1794 in Bents Green. Okay, group of lads from Sheffield, group of lads from Norton, which was then classed as being in Derbyshire. Okay, it lasted a few days, and the paper said there were no deaths but a few serious injuries, so they must have had a good time. Sheffield itself, of course, we all know about Sheffield FC in Hallam. Okay, first ever tournament in world football in Sheffield, the Uden tournament. Second ever tournament in world football, the Cromwell Cup, won by Sheffield Wednesday. Okay, the first professional player, Sheffield Wednesday. Okay, unbelievably still in roughly the top 15 of clubs who've won First Division titles. Okay, last team from outside of the top flight to win an English domestic trophy. So Sheffield, and the modern rules of football, by the way, were based on largely football in Sheffield. Okay, so it was lads in Sheffield playing the game of football, which has led to the rules that we have for football today. For example, the position of goalkeeper was invented in football because there was a scrap between the lads from Sheffield FC and Hallam, and the referee said, you've got to go and stand behind between the posts. That's how the game position of goalkeeper was invented. So the point is, we've got a rich heritage that, quite frankly, Chancery has not respected in any shape or form. Okay, we've got a rich history within the history of the game. Sheffield has got a rich formative history in the world football, and he's just not respected it. He's not respected you, he's not respected our position within game. He is not the right or proper fit or proper custodian for an asset like Sheffield Wednesday. Okay, and I think we'll go into Q&A there. Ian, is that all right?
Thanks, guys. So the next bit is the bit I have been looking forward to. So it's Q&A. Please fire any questions you want at us. If we can answer it, we will. We'll try and do our best. Please be gentle. Sorry, mate, I've got one here straight away. So we'll come round. I'll get 2 mics going, and we'll get round everybody who wants to ask a question.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, when is the next engagement panel? What happened to the umbrella group, and is there a possibility of a strategy going into the next engagement panel to try and persuade him to sell, basically?
That one can be aimed at me, because I think I might well have screwed that one up. But anyway, yeah. The last engagement panel basically was the first that the trust had been involved in for a long time. And basically with an emergency engagement panel, and it went belly up. I refused to sign the minutes off, and all the fan groups basically fell out. They just cancelled the next engagement panel, which is supposed to be at end of June. Right? There's been no new date announced for it. The trust... No. The trust put forward a load of questions, and some questions to try and sort the, shall we say, toxic, I don't know how you put it, but the arena that it was in, the questions that weren't answered. And I think a lot of people think that we, as a trust, have sabotaged that, and nothing could be further from the truth. People, not the supporters groups. We've got a representative from the Armed Forces group sat over here. Supporters group do an unbelievable job, and people don't see with volunteers, everybody is a volunteer. They get a lot of pelters. There's some fantastic people involved in it, and I hate the fact that we're arguing amongst it, or we were arguing amongst ourselves, because for me, unity is the key, absolute key. And people have got to stop picking spots off each other. We're all volunteers, we'll do it out at our own time. Anybody knows me, my missus is on my case all the time about the amount of time I spend here. It's difficult, but we all do us best. Now, there's several groups on that EP, right? At that engagement panel meeting, people have had some real pelters, and I'll tell you now, every single one of them groups stood up, did a fantastic job for Wednesdayites. They asked him questions, he gave answers that weren't real answers. He didn't answer one of the questions at all in a proper manner. He answered them all, and I can't argue about that. The way it went down was a disgrace, to be honest, yeah. And I can't believe that that engagement panel has put up with that. I'm a lad of Foxhill. I've come off Foxhill, I've put up with some right crap in my life. I've never seen alt like that, indecent people and be treated like that who are a disgrace, to be honest. Are them people have put up with it? I don't know. So the answer to that is the next engagement panel has been cancelled. We've put several questions forward and several improvements for it that were on the agenda. There has been no date and no reason why the engagement panel's been cancelled. The person who liaises with us at the club, I can't blame him at all. It's Trevor Braithwaite. He's only acting on what he's being told to do. So you can't, the direct people that we're dealing with at the club, you cannot blame them at all. They're trying to do the best. It comes from the top, I'm afraid to say. Yeah, so that's the answer. Yeah. Sorry, it's not a positive answer. I think that the true way of dealing with it is to have an engagement panel model, and for the fans to be able to deal straight directly into the club. In its present state, I don't think it's fit for purpose. But there's some fantastic people on there. Fantastic, spend time on there. I hate the fact that people get slagged off. People have different opinions. People want to support Wednesday in every way. Everybody in this room will have a different opinion. Please don't slag people off. Please don't go on social media and say it's wrong. All they're doing is trying their best for everybody. I'm sure the lad from Armed Forces Group will back that up. So I'd like, there's somebody wanting a question, but if that answers your question, I'm sorry, it's not a positive answer, but that's how it is. All right, yeah. Why it back?
Right, I've written this on my phone because I'm getting older and I've had a few beers. Right, so just bear with me. So the fans have been described as being toxic. I just want to say the fans aren't toxic. There's one person who's toxic in this whole situation, and I think we know who it is. So, all right. Well, I don't have to put a name on it, but you know him, right? Mr. Chancery. Maybe it's a question for Simon for this, and maybe you've answered it in part. But Simon talked about an operating plan and some ambitions for the consortium, but we didn't really hear about how the consortium plan to sort of unify the fan base. Because if we have a unified fan base, then that's going to be a better set of customers for the consortium. And I'm fed up. I argue with my mate, who I love, constantly. Because for some reason, and I respect his reasons, I don't know what it is, but he's sort of giving Chancery a bit of leeway. And I know there's quite a few fans that do that. We're split. We're described as toxic. We're not toxic. Somebody needs to fix us as a fan base to unify us. So if Simon's got an idea of what a sort of fan engagement cultural plan could be from the consortium, I'd be interested to know if he does actually know that.
I'll let Si answer that, but I think I can help you with that because we've done some work on that as a trust. But just let Simon answer that if he can.
I'll be honest, you're probably the better person to be able to speak to from that point of view. I mean, yes, there needs to be sort of a lot more fan engagement. I can't speak to the consortium because I did say earlier on, I'm not part of it, I'm not their spokesman. I've just simply been trying to help out. So I have some idea what they want to do and how they want to go about it. but it wouldn't be right for me to tell you what they're going to do. And, I don't have that authority. What I will say is that it's been absolutely central to their bid was that they want to give this club back to the fans. That has been a major part of their thing. They've seen the pain, they've seen the suffering and the problems, and they want it to be given back to the fans. So I think you'll see a massive change in the attitude towards all of us. Things like season ticket prices, they're well aware of what the situation with the prices, and they're going to do everything they possibly can do. But again, I can't make promises. It's not for me to say, sorry.
Thanks, Si. One of the things that I will say is, as a trust, and we have had pelters of other fan groups, but I've offered the EP members a place on our panel so they can come and make some decisions with us and try and unify everybody. And we're using the word unify because we don't want to use the other word, which is united, and that's a swear word in here, guys. All right. So I don't think I've suddenly swallowed a dictionary, it's deliberate, all right. And I think there is some movement towards everybody singing, I hate this phrase as well, but singing from the same song sheet.
Is that our responsibility?
I agree with you, but it's also a responsibility for people not to send pelters to everybody on social media and have a go. You can be critical. Anybody can come and see me. If they know me, they can come, they can ring me up, they can pull me at a pub before game, they can come and pull me when I'm away and talk to me and say something to me. And I'll take that on board and pass it on to everybody. I don't like keyboard warriors. I don't like it at all because they're hiding. They've had to go outside, they've had to go at everybody. It's a disgrace. It shouldn't happen. We should be all, the one thing we've got to do is change this football club. And as a support, everybody said in here, we've got a fantastic fan base. We aren't being, we Wednesdayites, right? But we aren't being over the top. We've got one of the best fan bases in the country, if not the best. We've got a different sort of fan base as well. People are interested. They don't only want to go to a game, they want to know what's happening, they want to be involved, they want to get involved. And I think that creates frustration as well, because they want to do it their way. Now, I want complete unity. I want everybody to be singing from the same song sheets. Not easy, we all have different opinions. But we must put forward a common view. Even if it's 10 words, if it's all agreed on, that's fantastic, yeah? I just don't like pelters. I don't like people having a go. Personal attacks on people, it's shocking. Myself and one of the other members have had it. I know the Armed Forces lads had it after the last engagement panel meeting. I know the ladies group get it all the time. They're the second biggest fan group. What the hell's going on? Why are we slagging them off? They do some fantastic work. The Bradley Lowry thing that happened at Hillsborough, they more or less on their own put it right. Yeah, they raised money and gave it to them. What a fantastic thing to do. It's unbelievable. We've got a podcast here who's raising money for the people who aren't getting paid at Hillsborough. How good's that? Not many clubs do that. Right, we're reaching out as a trust to talk to people, to talk to other fan groups. We're in contact with Reading. We're working with them. We're learning from their mistakes. They came up with a thing that you're never ever going to have everybody saying the same thing. But what you want is people to give one version, one unified voice. Even if it's a small thing, if everybody says it, you can get behind it. What we need to do is get behind this movement and push it forward. We might be the biggest fan group, but we're not the only fan group. You know, everybody has a say in it, and they've all got to add to it. I hope that sort of answers your question, mate, and I hope it puts a few things right for everybody in here, because I hate the fact that we're divided, because we're not, we're Wednesdayites.
Thank you.
I've got to add it back here, it's just something, you know.
Hello. This is sort of a question for everybody. As some people may know, Adam Shaw has made his company the front of shirt sponsor for the Sheffield Steelers. And my general question is, mainly for Simon and other people, do you think this represents his ambition to invest in Sheffield sport as a whole? That in fact, that is raised his investment into the Sheffield Steelers to be the front of shirt sponsor?
Sorry, Si. I don't know how to answer that, mate.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different thing. Trigger Hub is Adam's one of his businesses. It's not necessarily the consortium or even part of the consortium. It is a separate thing. But yes, obviously he's a sports fan and he's a fan of sports in Sheffield. And it's a very large investment he's made there in Sheffield Steelers. I'm told it's the largest one they've ever had. So yeah, you get some indications to his commitment to Sheffield sport. One of the things that does need to change at the club is things like commercial deals. Our commercial sponsorship deals have really been at the low end of things. And you look at the other extreme end, Wrexham, which are a much smaller club than us, and you look at the millions of pounds that they're able to generate through various different ways. We need to be able to look at doing other options and that sort of thing. So, a good commercial sense is something that needs to be looked at as we're going further forward.
Cheers, Si. I've got Nigel from Armed Forces Group here who'd like to say a few words. Please give him a warm welcome because he's one of my jobs.
Thank you. I might be right under the speaker here, so apologies. Firstly, Ian, thank you. Supporters groups don't see eye to eye. They literally don't see eye to eye. Can't stand the army, I was in the Navy. Can't stand the RAF, I was in the Navy. So we're never ever going to see eye to eye. What we've got to do, and what Ian said and what Simon said, is find commonality. And in this room, I think because you're in this room, you've got that little bit more passion for Sheffield Wednesday than some of our other fans, and we've all got passion, we all support the club, but I don't think anybody in this room is going to be one of those keyboard warriors, because I think they're probably still at home slagging us off that are sat in this room. So if we can find some commonality and reach out to the people in the EP that you know that resonate with you and what your passions are, there will be an engagement panel group that you can get involved with, that you can talk to, that you can be a voice for, or they can be a voice for you. The Armed Forces one, the Ladies one, the East Midlands Owls, the Trust. Reach out, put your voices in, get it heard. The more of us that do this, the better it will be for you. It pains me to say it, but the club at the other side of this city are phenomenal for the Armed Forces, and they haven't got an Armed Forces group. They invited us, and I went over before the game over there to discuss what happened because of Remembrance Day, and they were fabulous in how they supported their armed forces, and it killed me because I came back to this club and they don't want to know us, and we keep asking, we keep trying. We were invited down to Lillishall last summer to do a tournament with other clubs, armed forces groups. We were the only one that weren't in a proper kit. They were all in their club's kits, so we've been trying to get a kit. Can we play in the away kit? Can we play in last season's kit? Still wasn't happening. So we've gone away and got separate funding, and we've had some authorised ex-kits manufactured. Sheffield United do things over and above what we do, and it kills me. So the more that we can get, and as I said, I can only speak on the Armed Forces group because I'm here as a representative for them. Get involved with your fan groups, create fan groups, feed everything in, and then what these guys are doing and what the trust format hopefully will be, will give us as a fan group a lot better place within our club and hopefully a lot better experience.
Thanks. I'd just like to say about that, some of the fan groups are treated awfully at Hillsborough, so what they did to Armed Forces Group this time and this Remembrance Day were an absolute disgrace, and it just shows the... Excellent. He's shocking. They just treat him with disdain, and it's appalling, and that, it winds people up. It's wrong. These lads have stood for the country, whatever. I don't care how you want to put it, but the bottom line is that we should respect that as a whole fan group, as everybody, every supporter here. And it winds me up that people like that get treated awfully. I think the ladies' football team at Hillsborough is absolutely treated disgustingly. David Higgins is on EP, and it's appalling how they treat them. I don't think they get any funding from the club. The only thing he's done is give them a licence to let them use the name, which is shocking, really. Any more for any more? Come on, guys.
Sorry, this is just looking forward a little bit. I hope he sells the club, but what's our strategy if he doesn't? And I think that's something that I would like, the trust to try and work on, not right now and answer that question, but let's have a strategy for what we're going to do in 6 months or 12 months or 2 years, because otherwise we're going to be still talking about the same thing.
Yeah, I was about to suggest we give a quick update on what happened with the EFL last Friday. James, our league, was going to do that, but we are planning sort of a 360 strategy, including financial planning, EFL, regulator, talking to MPs, keeping pressure up, more protests. We personally think over the summer there's not going to be a huge uptake of protests. Wait, the first home game of the season, we'll get a big protest going rather than little ones in the summer. But we'll just keep general pressure up. As things come up, we're trying to keep it in the press, get it into the Time media. So there's lots going on to try and keep the pressure up. We can't physically force them to sell, but there are lots of different little things we can do, and we have the EFL, we have the regulator incoming. So we're going to give an update on what happened on Friday.
Hi everybody, probably worth staying at this stage, seeing as I've been up and down like a yo-yo. We're a bit thin on the ground at the trust board level, so if you are interested in getting involved, do let us know, because the more people, the more expertise, the more energy, the more motivated individuals who want to get involved, the better we can be for you. So if you are interested, there's no such thing as not having the right qualifications or experience or whatever. What's more important is energy levels, motivation, willingness, so on and so forth. So I am the EFL lead. I was there with Emma from the women's group, virtual meeting on Friday. We got the minutes signed off and a technical explainer this morning. Could you just find me the technical explainer, please, just so I can talk it through. So obviously I can't talk beyond the minutes. They will be released tomorrow. Cheers. I think that when those minutes are released, what I would probably point you towards is look at who the EFL sent. Okay? So I think that's instructive of how bad the situation is. Okay? This wasn't like low-level EFL people we were fobbed off at, so look at the attendance list from the EFL first of all. I think the second thing is look around what they were saying about owners and directors tests. Okay? They don't feel at this moment in time, okay, that there's probably enough for an owners and directors test, okay? But what they are saying is that that could be something that happens in the future depending on various disciplinary processes, okay? So it's not off the table, but it's not on the table for now. So have a look at that. What they did confirm was what regulations that we've been charged with. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit off the technical explainer that's going to be released tomorrow alongside the minutes, which will make a lot more sense. So the EFL have charged the club with 3 separate regulatory breaches. 54.1 covers non-payment of players, which is the one you'll know about because that's reported immediately after it's been breached on the embargo reporting service of the EFL. They've charged the club with 64.7, which relates to payments not made in accordance with the terms of the standard player contract, which includes late or partial payments. And they've charged the club with 52.6.3, which applies more broadly to any failure to pay a football creditor, which includes players, managers and club staff. So that's where the breach comes in. The first two relate to, in my understanding, to player contracts, because we've not now paid club staff as well. Non-playing club staff, we've been charged also with 52.6.3. These 3 regulations cumulatively count towards what's called in EFL regulations the 30-day rule. If a club breaches these regulations for a 30-day period across a 12-month period between the 1st of July to the 30th of June, okay, so it doesn't have to be a 30-day period in total in one incidence of not playing. It can be several incidences of not paying that accumulate in a 30-day period, okay? Then the club will be given a fee restriction lasting for 3 consecutive transfer windows. Okay, during this period, the club will be prohibited from paying transfer fees, any other forms of compensation like agents' fees or loan fees for players. Okay? Basically anything to do with buying a player beyond paying wages, we're not going to be able to pay out. I think that includes signing on fees as well. So I think you need that serious. Okay, 3 transfer windows. So what's the difference apart from that between a transfer embargo, which we're already in, and a fee restriction, which the EFL wouldn't confirm either way whether we were or not in the meeting? So a transfer embargo prevents a club from registering new players or increasing playing staff costs overall, but is easily lifted once the breach is resolved. So that's why we've been in and out of embargo over the years. A fee restriction ban is different, apart from the fact that it's way more cumulative because you're not allowed to basically spend any money on buying players full stop. Okay, a fee restriction is triggered by the 30-day rule, okay, can't be lifted even if Chancery finds the money and pays. So it's 3 windows, okay? Now the club can appeal it, okay, and that might mean that the sanction is reduced in longevity, so it might, for example, be reduced from 3 windows to 1 window, or even possibly 2 windows to 1 window, but it's not going to be lifted full stop. So once we've been charged by the 30-day rule, it's here to stay. Even if Chancery finds the money, the only thing you can do by appealing is perhaps reduce some of the severity, okay? Once those charges have been made, it will then, after the 14-day period where they either the club accepts the charge or appeals against the charge. If they appeal, of course, it will go to a slightly different process. But if they accept it, and we're going to get the 30-day rule. If he breaks the 30-day rule, we're getting the 3 transfer window anyway, whether they admit it or not, by the way. But it does make a slight difference because the EFL, once you've broken the 30-day rule, they can put on enhanced financial oversight and conditions under profitability and sustainability rules. Okay, so this means that basically the EFL can do things, and this is not the only sanction, but the example they gave in the meeting was that it can impose an enforced business plan, okay, on the club, which can include forced player sales or cuts to operational costs to make sure that the club lives within its means. Okay, so that means no more spending, no money more than you bring in through turnover. Okay, so why is the EFL charging Sheffield Wednesday rather than Dayfon Chancery? Well, they are charging Dayfon Chancery, I'll get on to this, but basically the EFL have said we can say that in their regulations, contracts of employment, which the 3 breaches is essentially what we've done, or Chancery has done, okay, legally and in the regulations, they are a contract between club and the employer, not the owner and the player. Okay, so it's between player and club, not owner and player, which means under EFL regulations, any charges that arise from payment defaults under the regulations stated, basically, it means that the club is going to be punished and not the owner. Okay? Now, ultimately, of course, Chancery is at fault. Let's never forget that. But under EFL regulations, they feel that they have no option because of the nature of the breach that Chancery's mismanagement has led us into, is to basically charge the club. Okay, and that means that, like I say, with the 30-day rule, it means the 3 transfer window restriction. So the club is, sorry, I beg your pardon, the EFL is charging Dayfon Chancery under Regulation 21.2.2 for breaching an undertaking not to take or omit to take any action that would result in the club breaching EFL regulations. So this basically means because he's not paid players and non-playing club staff that he's breached an undertaking to the EFL. And what happens here will depend on whether Chancery contests the charge or admits it. So if Regulation 21.2.2, breaching an undertaking to the English Finance on the Brain, English Football League, is contested, the process becomes formal and lengthier. 4 disciplinary proceedings are triggered. The EFL will put the charge to an independent disciplinary commission. The hearing will be scheduled, and the EFL is basically the prosecuting authority, and the owner has to mount a defence. In the regulations, the burden of proof is on the EFL, so they have to prove that the individual breached the undertaking to cause harm, and the standard of proof is the civil standard of balance of probabilities. What happens is if Chancery contests the charge, then the sanctions placed upon him by the EFL disciplinary panel may be harsher than they will if he admits guilt, essentially. If Chancery does go straight to admitting guilt, okay, then it will still be referred under EFL regulations to a disciplinary commission, an independent one. And the commission will review the facts, consider the admission and determine the appropriate sanction. And then Chancery can be charged under regulation 93.2, which can impose interest be payable on any sums awarded under this regulation as well. Factors considered in sanctioning includes a seriousness of the breach, whether it's a repeat offence, impact on the club's financial position or its otherwise integrity, whether the undertaking was knowingly breached or an instance of negligence, whether the individual charged cooperates or makes an early admission, any other mitigating or aggravating factors. So you know as much as I know now regarding regulation breaches, but I'm afraid to say it's not a positive way to end the event, which is why I thought we maybe shouldn't end with EFL stuff, but there we are. Anyway, thanks.
Basically, guys, we're in the shit. Yeah. Sorry. I sat through that meeting as well, and it weren't easy listening. I think what James said. I think when you see the minutes, you see the seriousness in which the EFL have took it because of the people who were at that meeting. They're aware of what's going off, more than aware of it. It's not good, guys. It's not. But we've just got to hope that he bites the bullet and sells, and we can move on from it. Right. Before I close, is there any other questions? And anybody who hasn't put the money, hand in the pocket, please chuck it in bucket because it's at Children's Hospital, and let's try and raise a good few quid. All right, guys. But thank you. Thanks very much for coming. I appreciate it, everybody. Cheers.